Welcome to the Possibility Mom Conference. I am your host, Lisa Canning, and I am so excited. You are here for an evening, for a weekend of hope, motivation, and practical skills, all to help you live your most authentic, most beautiful, most wonderful life possible. Before we get into things, it wouldn't be a Lisa Canning party if there wasn't some dancing. And so if you're just stumbling upon me here on Facebook, or you're stumbling upon me here on YouTube and you're like, who is this lady? I promise you want to stay because we're going to have so much fun. But what I'm going to invite you to do right now is stand up. You might have had a hard time getting here. The kids might be like mine are on the other side of a closed door and you're trying to just escape for a few moments. That's all good. It's all okay. We're going to have some fun. So I want you to stand up. And before we get into all the content, what you can expect this weekend is a lot of inspiration, a lot of motivation, and very practical things that you can implement to help your life right now, right this second. But I need to get us moving because it's Friday night and we're going to have some fun. So we're going to start with a little dance party before we get into things. And we're just going to start with a little clap. We're going to just practice a few basic things. So get up. I'm going to encourage you to get up, whatever you're doing. Just get up and step, clap with me. We're going to put this all to music in just a second. The next move we're going to do is a little shimmy. So I was a competitive cheerleader in university. And so this stuff to me is like I could do this all day long. So you're just going to shimmy your shoulders. Next move we're going to do is the get jiggy with it. It's like the ready? If anyone remembers the Will Smith, get jiggy with it, na 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 na. That's going to be our next move. And then our final move is we're going to raise the roof. So you're just going to do whatever you want to do with your feet. And we're just going to raise the roof. Okay, so we're going to put this to music. We're going to have a little dance party. My intention for this conference is to emulate as much as what you would get if you were in person with me in a ballroom in Florida. So get ready. DJ, drop that beat. Here we go. All right, we're just Alrighty, friends, let me catch my breath. Do I have water? If you have water, grab yourself a cup of water because I'm going to tell you what is in store for the rest of this evening. Woo, here we go. While I'm catching my breath, can you do me a favor? Head to the chat wherever you're watching this, whether you're watching this on Facebook or you're watching this on YouTube. Head right down into the chat and let me know where you are tuning in from. Tell me how many kids you've got and tell me what you're drinking tonight. I'm drinking water. I wish I was drinking something else, but I'm drinking water. Let me know in the chat where you're from, how many kids you've got, and what you're drinking tonight. Alrighty. So, a couple things I want to tell you before we get started. My intention for this conference was to bring you a little piece of Florida. I was really excited to host a conference in 2020. We recently relocated my family from Toronto, Canada, down to Southwest Florida. And being here in Florida, we have so many conference centers. We have so many beautiful beachside resorts. And so it was a really, really, really big goal of mine to host an in-person conference. But of course, as we all know, coronavirus hit, and I've decided to take it all online. And to be honest, I think in some ways, this is a lot better. I know I have friends from Ireland joining me here. I know I have friends from all over the United States. I've got all my hometown peeps up in Canada, and I know there's people tuning in from all parts. South America, I see. It's very exciting. I'm so happy you're all here. So first thing we got to do is you get access to not only this live event, but also a workbook, also a whole bunch of other bonuses. And so if you would like to follow along with this evening's program, I want to encourage you right now, right this second, go to www.thepossibilitymomconference.com and go grab yourself the workbook. And we will make sure that it's also below in the comments so that you can follow along. And I'm going to share with you some other really fun things that are happening. This conference also has basically two components. We've got the live event happening right here, right now, as well as access to over 40 experts. I have interviewed incredible people from all different backgrounds with so many insights on motherhood, work-life balance, parenting, home and design, all kinds of things. And I cannot wait to introduce all of them to you. But you can't get any of those without going and grabbing your access pass. And all, by the way, all of it is free all weekend long. Alrighty, next thing I want to tell you is that I want you to join me in the Possibility Mom Success Circle, because in there on Facebook is where we are going to have fun little conversations about some of the talks that are in there, in the 40 plus interviews that I've got for you there. We're going to have a cocktail hour, or a mocktail hour, whatever you like, at the end of every day. All the things that you would have in an in-person conference, like breakout rooms, like networking, is all going to happen over there in my private Facebook group. You do need to be approved to get in there. So go ahead right here, right now, open another tab, and you can go and ask to be included in the Possibility Mom Success Circle. Alrighty. And then finally, I want to let you know that just like an in-person conference, we are also going to have all kinds of fun giveaways. But in order to give away, because obviously I'm not in person with you, we have to be a little bit creative about the way that we're going to do our giveaways. And so I want you to use all weekend long, from now until Sunday, all weekend long, the hashtag, the Possibility Mom Conference, and share with me whatever you want. Share with me a photo of where you're tuning in from. Share with me what it looks like, where you're viewing, if you're sitting in your living room, if you're hiding in your bed from your children or your husband, if you are able to get away into your own quiet space to watch. Snap me a picture, use the hashtag. Use the hashtag also if you want to talk about the topics. We're going to be unpacking some pretty, I would say, big topics in this conversation. And I think they're important conversations to have. And so I want to encourage you to use this hashtag all weekend long. Alrighty. Note to self, when you dance hard, you can't catch your breath. You have to talk long. It's harder to catch your breath. Alrighty. And then finally, before we get into things, I just want to share with you that if you are finding this interesting, if you would like to share this with a friend, to go ahead right here, right now, press the share button on whatever device you are watching this on, and just share the love. If you know a mom who would find this content interesting, if you know a mom who might be struggling right now, especially in quarantine, and if you know a mom who really could just use a little bit of a helping hand right now, I really want to encourage you to share this with them. Alrighty, here we go. Are you ready? In the 2 days ahead, we are going to unpack things like how to grow your business, how to grow your family and grow your corporate career. We're going to unpack things like Just because you pressed pause on a career, it doesn't mean you're saying goodbye to your dreams. We're going to unpack things like how to finally stop yelling at your kids. Yes, you finally can stop. And we're going to unpack things like how to say goodbye to survival mode for good. That is what is ahead this weekend. And I'm so excited that you are here and that you're here with me. Why is this important right here, right now? We're in a very unique time in history. Never have we ever truly been in such a time when, if I may just be very vulnerable with you, have not felt confident about decisions. Let me know in the comments if you resonate with this right now. If you resonate with the fact that perhaps you were already not feeling confident about some of the things that you were deciding to do, whether it be staying at home with your kids or deciding to go back to work, or whether it be leaving a full-time, well-paying career in favor of a creative pursuit or something so completely out of the box. I think in motherhood, there are so many ways for us to feel like we're failing, or for us to feel not confident. And then add on to all of that the layer of, now we're in a global pandemic. Now we're making very difficult decisions, whether or not we are sending our kids back to school, the kind of schooling, how many days, or if we're deciding to homeschool, what does that look like? And so that is why I really, really, really wanted to make sure that we had this time together in order to find some hope, to link arms, to feel like there is opportunity for maybe a little bit of control, or feel like yes, I'm feeling confident about what it is I'm doing. If you can empathize with anything I'm saying, just let me know right here below in the comments. I have had quite the journey in motherhood. My own journey has been all kinds of ups and downs. And before we get any further, I want to share with you some feelings about having it all. I have always struggled with this phrase. What does it mean to have it all? Can a mom have it all? If a mom has it all, does it mean that there's something else severely lacking? And so what I want to do just to get us started is to really just paint the picture of what is possible in motherhood and what it means to live our most authentic, best life. But before we do that, I want to tell you a story. If you know my story, if you're familiar with my story, you know that I got my start long ago on an HGTV show. And it was a show called Marriage Under Construction. It's right here on your screen. And fun fact, this lovely gal, Vanessa Ray, went on to do all kinds of things. She's currently in Blue Bloods. She was the villain in Pretty Little Liars, if anybody remembers that show. Anywho, she's gone on to do some pretty exciting things. So I got my start in HGTV. And that led me to some pretty exciting adventures. I was able to work on the design team of the Property Brothers. I hosted many different lifestyle television shows like the Marilyn Dennis Show, and designed spaces for families all across the US and Canada. At the exact same time as building my family and building my business, I had a whole bunch of children. I have had 8 kids in 11 years. And let me introduce them all to you. So my son, John, is 11. My daughter, Evelyn, beside me here in this picture, is 9. My son, Leo, is 8. My daughter, Rose, is 6. My son, Joseph, is 5. My son, James, is 3. Phoebe is 2. And then we just welcomed baby Colleen, and she is 6 months old. And I am tired just saying that, you guys, always. Tired just saying that. And so as quickly as my career grew, my family size grew as well. And it was a very interesting shift where people stopped asking me questions about interior design. They started asking me questions like, how on earth do you get out the front door in the morning? How do you manage to put on lipstick? How do you manage to stay sane with that many children? And so eventually I came to, via many different twists and turns, realize that, okay, there's something there. There's something in me clearly that needs to be further explored. And so all of my time management and understanding of priorities and how to design your life went into my book, The Possibility Mom. And that has taken me on this super fun journey where you and I are together now, where I now speak in front of wonderful groups of women. It has brought me to the Today Show, and I now coach women one-on-one and in small groups. And I'm so grateful for this opportunity and where my story has taken me, because I have found now that truly so many things are possible. But I definitely didn't always feel that way. There was a time, and I remember it so clearly, so clearly. It was a winter day, just like this, in my hometown of Toronto, Canada. And I remember I was sitting in my minivan, and for those of you who are in the north or have experienced snow, let me know if you love the snow. I moved to Florida, y'all, so you know how I feel about snow. But let me know in the comments if you love the snow. And for those of you who know, when it snows for the first time, like, it's so pristine and it's so peaceful. It hasn't been like messed up by muddy boots or by cars. It's just like this beautiful blanket. And I just remember looking around my minivan thinking, what in the heck is happening here? This is the complete opposite of the contents of my minivan. I had goldfish crackers and Cheerios basically crushed up like confetti. And it was like, like literally like confetti over every surface. I had sippy cups and baby bottles and apple juice containers crushed up. I had the remains of fast food from every single brand of fast food that you could imagine, because I was constantly eating on the road at the time that I was practicing interior design. I had a passenger side seat full to the brim of interior design things. I had right between the passenger seat and the driver's seat, full to the brim, a baby bag. I had multiple car seats of multiple sizes, because at that time I had 4 kids, ages 5 and under, and way in the back, I had my brand new baby girl, baby Rose, and she was just days out of hospital. And I was going into work. I had convinced myself at this time that it was the very best thing for me to be checking in on a project where I felt like I was absolutely necessary. And I still had the Band-Aid from my epidural in my back. I still had, I was like just days out of hospital. So for all of you who have given birth, all kinds of funky things happening. I was exhausted. I was delirious. And I'll never forget the look on the faces of the trades. I had the bag in my one hand. I had Rose in the little bucket carrier underneath me. I was tired and exhausted. And I showed up at that front door, and everyone was like, why are you here? And the crazy thing is that I was the one who told myself I had to be there. No one else told me that I had to be there. Not my husband, not my clients, not the trades, nobody. I had put so much pressure on myself to show up that day and to prove to everyone that you could have it all, that you could do it all, that you could have a baby and then go back to work. And that day, sitting in my minivan, I realized that my priorities were as messy as my minivan. And that was the beginning of the end. That was the day that I said, no more. There has got to be another way. There has got to be another way that a woman can follow her dreams, can pursue her passions, can do the things that light her up, but not at the expense of her health, her marriage, and her relationship with her kids. And what became painfully obvious to me at that time was that I was defining success by the standards of others. What I was doing at that time when I was a young mom, it was about halfway through my mothering journey, I was just looking sideways, like, to be very frank and to be very literal, I was looking sideways. I would look over here at my girlfriend who was an interior designer, and I would be like, okay, what jacket is she wearing? What shoes is she wearing? What handbag is she carrying? What car is she driving? Okay, check, check, check. That is what success looks like. I need to go pursue all of that. Or I'd look over here and I'd be like, okay, well, she's doing television. She's doing media. She's writing for all the magazines. She's doing all the things. Check, check, check. Okay, I'm going to go do that. And what became painfully obvious was that I was placing my self-worth in completely external things. I was hustling, I was grinding, I was staying up late, I was trying to show everybody that, oh my gosh, like, this is what success looks like, but none of it was coming from a place that was internal. Fast forward a little bit. Immediately after that day, I started making some changes. I started to see, okay, what do I want more in life? What do I want less of in life? I knew at that time I wanted more of my kids. I knew at that time I wanted more of my spouse. I knew at that time I wanted less of conflict with my spouse. I knew at that time I wanted less guilt. And so I started to make some changes and design my life a little bit differently in order to set myself up and my family up better for success. And it was a very pivotal moment for me. And those basically 5 years prior or after my minivan meltdown was a lot of guessing and testing, a lot of falling on my face yet again, a lot of turning to my husband and saying, I am so sorry. This is so bad. I have failed yet again, but we're gonna pick it back up and try again. But the biggest thing that I learned in that time was that success has to be from an internal place. I am now what's called a strategist in the Women's School. And the Women's School is a beautiful program that talks all about exactly this. And it is painful that we're so confused about this in this time. I coach women now one-on-one and in small groups. And the conversations that we have in those groups, so many people are having minivan meltdowns. So many people are challenged by the tension that comes from, should I be working or should I not? This group over here is telling me this, but this group over here is telling me another thing. And it is my goal in life and the goal of my work, The Possibility Mom, to create and to define success in a completely different way. In the Women's School, we talk about wholeness. We talk about how we need to be an integrated person, and that when we are whole, when it's not just one part of the wheel, it can't just be one part of the wheel that is doing well. The entire wheel has to be doing well. And what was so challenging for me in that time, when I was in my minivan meltdown time, I was truly only focused on my wealth section of the wheel, if you see it here on the screen. I was truly only focused on my career or contribution, little sliver of this wheel. And it came at the expense of everything else. And I just want to tell you, if that you're feeling the same way, and maybe your portion of the wheel is different. Maybe you feel like you are crushing it in, your relationship with your kids and your husband, but your self-image or your sense of purpose or identity, you're asking a lot of questions. Or maybe you feel like you're doing so well in the career and wealth zone, but you're like, my health is absolutely taking its toll. You're in the right place. You're in the right place. We're going to talk about how to get to this other level, this other definition of success. We're going to talk about what it means to feel whole. And when I think about the expression, can a mom really have it all? My answer to that is yes. And my answer to that isn't just yes because I want us all to have all the things. My answer to that is yes, because that is how we can feel fulfilled. What experience has shown me in my own life and in my life of coaching now all kinds of moms from all over the North American continent is that we need a holistic, integrated view of success where all the areas support each other. Because let me bring it back down to my story. When I was in that minivan meltdown time, like, this is why this matters. Everybody, this is why this matters. When I was in my minivan meltdown time, all I was focused on was those two little pieces of the pie, wealth and my career. And in my head, I was justifying it. I was justifying it and saying, it's okay. I'm providing for my family. This is how I am prioritizing my family. But if you really looked at my calendar, if you really looked at how I was spending my time, every single part of my waking moment was thinking about work. When I was with my kids, I was always on my phone. When I was on dates with my husband, my phone was on the table. And even in the times when there was a moment of breathing room, like going to the dentist or waiting in line at the grocery store, I was on my phone working, or I was thinking about work. Let me know in the comments if this is something that you struggle with too. And perhaps for you, it's not work. Perhaps for you, it's you just simply feel so overwhelmed by the state of your home. Or perhaps for you, you feel like you can't go a day without yelling at your kids or feeling overwhelmed by having conversations with them or setting limits or boundaries. Or maybe you feel like your thing is there are people in my life who I'm allowing to walk all over me, or there are people in my life who I simply am giving too much weight to, or I'm allowing their opinion of me to really inform my opinion of me. Whatever it is, I believe that this matters, because without it, we're struggling. Without it, we're suffering. Without it, we're exhausted. And I just simply really believe that we are not meant to live in motherhood in a constant state of overwhelm. I don't know about you, but the pandemic for me has been a very interesting time of realizing like areas that I am really good at and areas that I am very much needing to grow. And I want to just sort of ask this question of where do you feel like, what do you feel like the pandemic has taught you? For me personally, I've learned that I've been able to lean into my time management skills because it has been obviously a little bit crunchy, especially at the beginning of the pandemic. Let me know in the comments if you feel like it was crunchy too. And when I say crunchy, I just mean like, oh my gosh, like there's so many things going on. Crunchy, 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 crunchy. I realized that, okay, wow, like I've got a handle on time management. I've got a handle on, being able to identify the areas of work that I need to focus on, and the areas of work that perhaps can be delegated to somebody else. But what I learned in pandemic time was that, oh my goodness, my house. I need to grow in my ability to manage my home. The laundry piled up big time. The dishes would pile up big time. There was a point in the beginning of quarantine where I felt like I was rocking it with time management. I was like, wow, I'm getting work done in very concentrated periods. I'm able to show up for my kids in very intentional ways. But the housework was beginning to just like, oh my goodness, completely overwhelm me. And I got into a pretty dark place. Let me know if you understand what I'm saying in the comments below. But I'm bringing this all up because there was a moment where I was like, oh my gosh, wait a minute. Like, can a mom really have it all? There was a moment where I was like, oh my gosh, like maybe I have to stop working. Maybe I have to put everything on hold. Just so I can get a little bit of a baseline understanding of how to manage my house with 8 children in it and 2 adults who are both working. But here's the hope I want to share with you. What started to happen in my life in the pandemic was I learned, okay, the dishes are all piling up because there's a whole bunch of human beings who aren't putting them away. And maybe we just need to have some systems and learn how to literally put dirty dishes in the dishwasher and then unload it when the dishwasher is clean. With the laundry, similarly, I was like, okay, why is it all piling up? It's not like it's like magic. Like, you know what I mean? It's not magically going to get done, right? Somebody has to do it. But does it have to be me? Do I have able-bodied children, older children who could do the laundry? These are the things I started unpacking and thinking about. In my minivan meltdown, I was like, I really want to practice interior design, but I don't want all the things over here that seem to be coming at the expense of it. My sanity, my health, my relationship with my husband, my relationship with my kids. And so I started asking myself the questions. Okay, well, what do I want more of? What do I want less of? What needs to change? What can be made possible so I don't feel in this constant state of overwhelm? I believe this time in history is for us. I believe that this time in history, we are currently coming out the other end victorious. There are a lot of things happening, and we won't talk about all of them now. But I do believe that this is a time that is testing us, and that if we can dig deep, we can learn new skills, and we can clarify our priorities, we will come out the other end successful. But it begins with us. You are here right now, wherever you are in the world. Maybe it was impossible for you to get here. Maybe you had to beg, borrow, and steal. Maybe you had to be like, oh my gosh, husband, like, please, like, whatever you had to, maybe the kids are watching yet another Disney cartoon and eating yet another bag of microwave popcorn. Whatever it is, you are here, right now, for a reason. There is something in you right now that is meant to be stirred up, brought up, uncovered. There is something in you, right now, that I hope this conference allows you to give birth to. And I'm so happy you are here. So I'd love to just pause for a little moment of reflection and listening to my story about the minivan meltdown and perhaps reflecting on what is going on with you right now in your life, I'd love to just ask the question, what are some things in your life right now you want more of? And what are some things in your life you want less of? I think the pandemic has a sort of like, almost like a cold, like bucket of water, if you will, kind of made us all like wake up, like, oh my gosh, but wake up in a good way, in the sense that I think for us to make it out the other end of all of this with success, we have got to clarify what's important to us. And I think the pandemic for a lot of people has done just that. One of the speakers on this conference in the 40 plus pre-recorded interviews that you get access to, her name is Joanna Venditti. And she shared that she loves how the pandemic just like leveled the playing field. If you were in like 100 extracurriculars, now you're in none. If you were personally involved in like all kinds of things, now you're in none. You know what I mean? And I think that this is such a unique time when we can ask this question and be really honest. What are some things in your life you want more of? And what are some things in your life you want less of? And feel free to go on over to the Possibility Mom Success Circle, or just type right here below, wherever you're watching this. If you've stumbled upon me on Facebook, if somebody has shared this with you on YouTube, just take a moment right now. What are some things in your life you want more of? And what are some things in your life you want less of? And I'm so excited to read all these comments. And let's see if I can pull some of them up right here, right now on my phone. All right, let's see. Guys, you having fun? Can you let me know in the comments if you're having fun so far? Did you like dancing? Do you find dancing weird? Are you like, who is this girl and why is she dancing? Let me know in the comments. Let's pull up some comments right here, right now. Okay, what do you want more of and what do you want less of? Let's see here. Okay, I can't pull up comments. That's okay. Let me know what you want more of and what you want less of, and I will go and respond to you in just a little bit. Right now, I want to pivot to a conversation that I think is really important, and something that I think holds a lot of us back from even thinking about what we want more of. Something that I think has become, again, very important in this time when we're all home, when perhaps we are not always on our A game, so to speak, when it comes to parenting or being a good spouse or trying to juggle all of our work. And I think this is just a really important discussion to have.
Each of them out loud.
Okay, just read them?
Just read them.
Okay. So the first one is, you are not doing enough.
Your mental health is not important. Just take care of everyone else.
You are a broken person that barely anyone can stand.
You'll never be anyone but just a mom.
You're too weak and emotional.
You don't give your children enough time and love.
Your weight embarrasses your kids, and you should have better style.
No one will want you if you ever have to date again with a body like that.
You were too hard on Flynn last night. You're going to scar her. She's just a kid.
Hi. Hello.
I'm Rebecca.
I'm Nikki. Nice to meet you.
I'm Hannah.
I'm Karen. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
You could read out loud one of your cards to Karen.
Okay. Mine says, you should have done more.
You can't be great at work or at home. You'll never be 100% at either. You'll always be mediocre.
My body is so ugly now that I've had a baby.
Oh, wow.
This is gonna make me cry. Is that what you're trying to do?
Everybody will be better off without you.
Sometimes I think that too. honestly. Sometimes I think I could just get in my car and leave, and it would just be so much better.
Yes.
They could just make it work without me.
How did that feel, reading your negative thoughts to another person?
I feel like it's one thing to write them down for yourself and to accept them yourself, but to have somebody else hear them is totally different.
Vulnerable, and like I want to say these things out loud to someone.
Yeah.
So that you can be like, you're crazy. And then be like, no, that's totally legit.
You know, when you hear someone else talking about all the things that they do,
Yeah.
woohoo!
I want to welcome to the Possibility Mom Conference my beautiful friend, Katherine Wintsch. Katherine, welcome.
Hi, Lisa. Thanks for having me.
I'm so happy you're here. So everybody, it's Katherine. Katherine is the author of the book, Slay Like a Mother, How to Destroy What's Holding You Back so you can live the life you want. This book, everybody, I gotta tell you, needs to be on every single mother's nightstand, because I think it unpacks what that video just did such a beautiful job exploring. The dangerous things that happen right up here, everybody. The words, the messages, the just the stories that we tell ourselves that really can hold us back from living the life that we are meant to live. So Katherine, thank you so much for writing the book. Thank you so much for being here today. Can you share with us why you wrote this book, why this whole concept of slaying in motherhood is so important to you, and where did it all start for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I wrote Slay Like a Mother because, unfortunately, for 20 years of my life, from age 15 to 35, I lived with what I refer to as my dragon of self-doubt, and this mean, negative voice in my head that was always saying I wasn't good enough, thin enough, nice enough, tough enough, mom enough, daughter enough, whatever enough. I mean, it just would chew up everything I did wrong, nothing I did right, and it was really an exhausting way to live. And then, but I thought it was normal. I thought everybody was hating on themselves. And so through my career in marketing and advertising, I had the opportunity to study mothers in 17 countries around the world. And I learned that their self-doubt was as deep as mine was, and they were hiding it as much as I was. And so we were all running around, everything's fine, there's nothing here to see, like you were saying earlier, you know, like this facade, this mask. And when I learned that thousands of women around the world felt the same way, it helped me come out of hiding, and it helped me go to therapy and read self-help books and watch lots of Oprah episodes, and learn how to love myself from the inside out, so that I didn't need that affection and those accolades from people outside of myself. And the practices and the tools that I talk about in the book so fundamentally changed my life that I felt obligated to share them with mothers everywhere, because I healed myself and I could have stopped there. But I now know the power of these tools, and I want to help mothers everywhere do the same.
I'm so happy you wrote this book, because it brought us into a very unique experience together. We were on the Today Show together, which was just all kinds of fun. Do you remember, like, vividly, like, this experience? Like, do you remember this? Do you remember this moment?
Yes, I remember the fear and the terror. Yes.
You know, I don't know what's so funny, Katherine, is, okay, so here we are both together. I was like, to my right, I was like, oh my gosh, Katherine's so calm. Oh, that's what I was thinking in my head, because I was like, but your heart was beating too, yeah?
I will tell you that I was so panicky. I mean, people think these moments are like so neat, and they are neat, but they're so stressful. I mean, you have 4 minutes, you have, 4 or 5 guests like that are all like chiming in and talking. It's so stressful. And I just remember I was so grateful that you answered the first question, because whatever it was, my whole mind just completely went blank. And I was like, I don't know what the answer is. And then you took the first question. I was like, thank goodness.
Well, it was such an adventure, and I'm grateful that is how we came into each other's lives. But I remember, because I when they shared with me, okay, on the segment you're also going to be with another author, I remember I went and I looked at the book, and I was like, oh man, like this is so necessary. And there's so many of the pages where I saw myself in your story. So what is you talk in the book about the difference between struggling and suffering. And that was something that hit so to the core with me, because I, for too long, stayed in a state of absolute suffer, like just for way too long. So share with us the difference between the two things and why you think it's important that we see the difference.
So I'm a researcher by trade, and I have been researching this phenomenon inside of mothers for almost a decade now. And I have seen that there's a very distinct difference, as you said, between struggling and suffering. So struggling is brought on by the external circumstances in your life. So having to feed your family 3 meals a day, having to learn how to homeschool your children, dealing with a global pandemic, whatever it is, those are struggles. Getting a divorce, getting diagnosed with breast cancer, having aging parents. Those are struggles. And there's no amount of, there's no situation that you're going to buy your way out of those struggles, move your way out, grow your way out. The human condition is to struggle. But we dip down into suffering when we yell at ourselves and we beat ourselves up for not handling those struggles better. So, come on, Katherine, your friend's kids eats vegetables 3 meals a day, and yours eat Jolly Ranchers. You're a poor excuse for a human being. That's where we dip below the surface and we suffer. And while it might sound overwhelming, it's meant to be empowering. And so my research shows that we suffer at our own hand. So if we are the one causing the suffering, because as Eleanor Roosevelt said, nobody can make you feel bad about yourself without your permission. So if we're causing the suffering, then we can uncause it, and we can learn to love ourselves throughout the difficulties and the pain and the struggles. And I'm living proof that it's a much better way to live.
You shared another thing in the book that really resonated with me as well. I feel like there are many parts of our journey we kind of walked similar. And to be honest, so many moms watching this, I know, have walked or are walking a similar walk. And it was this whole notion of pleasing others. You talked about how there were different people in your life that you were almost desperately trying to please. And so you were doing things really with that sole purpose. So for anyone listening who perhaps isn't aware of this tendency that many of us can fall into, and oftentimes completely by accident, what help would you give?
Well, you have to acknowledge first that you're doing it. And so that can come through therapy, self-reflection, self-help books. But I had to learn and identify the patterns of my people-pleasing ways. And they started very young. I remember in the 4th or the 5th grade, running home with my report card and very excited about my grades, not because I was proud of myself, but because I couldn't wait to see how proud my parents would be of me. And so that is a very externally driven motivator. And so it started very young with my parents. I wanted to please them. I wanted to impress them. I wanted to, always be on the up and up. But then I saw that those habits parlay themselves into my career, where then it was my boss, it was the CEO of the company where I was working, and it was, working 80 hours a week and always responding to emails. And as you were saying, going back to work way too early from maternity leave to try and prove myself. So I finally learned that my people pleasing ways were really sacrificing my sanity. And when you talked earlier about wanting to have it all, I believe that women can have it all, but it has to be our own all. It has to be our definition of success. And so for me, for 20 years, I just looked outside of myself and said, what's that person's definition of success, and that person's, and that person's. And I collected all of those. And then I realized that I wasn't happy, that I wasn't fulfilled, that people were quite proud of me and, maybe blindly impressed by some of the success stories. But I was very, lonely and exhausted on the inside. So I learned finally that that's not where one needs to seek approval. It needs to come from the inside.
Yeah, my version of that is getting published. So when I was an interior designer, it was like the holy grail to just like get your piece in a magazine. And it was like you did everything. You got the right client, you got the right photographer, you got all the right things with this pursuit of getting published. I finally got published. And then I was like, that's it. Like, I just remember how excited I was for a moment. And then when the next news cycle hit, or when, like, it's not very long that magazines stay, exciting and current. I just remember being like, well, what's next? Okay, now I've got to go after another magazine. I've got to go after a bigger magazine. And what happens when we do that? It is exhausting. And I think the thing I really want to point out here that's so important is why this is so dangerous is when a mom, let's say she was a working mom and received lots of praise and lots of acclaim from their work. They come home with a newborn baby. Nobody is patting them on the back for anything. Like, when you think about it, when you have a newborn, maybe your husband is home for the first little while if they're able to get time, and they're giving you a pat on the back. Oh my gosh, you're doing so good, hon. Like, you're up all night, whatever. Your husband goes back to work. Maybe your mom who came to stay with you goes back home. You're alone with this little baby, and nobody sees anything you do all day. And this is such a sharp, like very, very sharp turn. And if you can relate to what I'm saying, just type in the comments, like, heck yes, I understand. This is why I think the work that you are doing is so important, Katherine. And so if anyone is feeling that way, feeling like, oh my gosh, she has just identified me. How can she see me through this screen? Like, how does she have cameras? What do you do next? What do you do to slay the dragon?
Well, I learned maybe the hard way, but it's great to be able to pass on the wisdom that the only way to kill the dragon is to kill it with kindness towards yourself. That's the only way that it will die, because that negative voice in your head is there for a reason, and it's never going to completely go away. So to set the expectation that somehow you're going to rid yourself of this negative self-talk, by the end of this conference is unrealistic. It takes a lot of time and practice. But you can do it. And the first step is to realize that it's happening. So I was yelling at myself all day, every day for 20 years. And I never realized it until my therapist had me write down the exercise that you just saw in that video. She said, Katherine, I want you to write down the last terrible thing that you said to yourself. And I actually have it here from my journal. So this was probably 8 years ago when she asked me to do this. So what I wrote in my journal is, you are a poor excuse for a strong woman. And that was the last terrible thing that I said to myself. And there's something really powerful in writing it in your own handwriting and eventually having the courage to say it out loud, as you have done, Lisa, with your minivan meltdown. And you're so courageous to say, I had enough, I'm done, I have to be able to talk about this. But the first step is to really listen and acknowledge how you're speaking to yourself, because you can't get rid of what you don't acknowledge. So if your first step is today on this journey, just write down the last terrible thing that you said to yourself, and seeing it in your own handwriting will be, I I think, quite astonishing because you can't deny it anymore if you see it.
If you are listening to this and this is resonating, please feel free to share this with a friend, tag them below. And while you're typing, if you have any questions for Katherine about how to slay the dragons in your own life, put them right here wherever you're watching, and we will have some time for Q&A with Katherine in just a few moments. Okay, I'm really curious to know, like, what do you do to help yourself remember who you really are? So we're both in business. We're both entrepreneurs. You run a really cool company called the Mom Complex, where you do all kinds of things for clients. And what happens when you have a moment of like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I dropped the ball. Oh my gosh, I yelled at my kid, blah, blah, blah. What do you do now knowing all you know about slaying dragons?
Well, I have finally, thank goodness, embraced the fact that I'm not perfect and I'll never be perfect. And one of the things I do is I have learned to teach the negative voice in my head some manners. And so, according to my research, again, the negative voice is not going to completely go away. It's there to protect us in a lot of ways and call out cautionary, measures that we need to pay attention to. But so I'll give you an example that happened just before the pandemic. So I'm a big fan of Peloton. I love riding the Peloton bike. And I happened to be on a business trip before everything got locked down. And I was in the hotel gym and I'd gone to work out and I rode the Peloton bike. And then at the end of it, I rested both of my hands kind of on my backside, just stretching. And I felt what felt like 2 handfuls of cellulite in my hands. And so the negative voice in my head, because old habits die hard, immediately said, oh my gosh, what must that look like? And I'm looking around like, can everybody else see my cellulite? But the first win was that I heard it. I wasn't just subjected to it. I heard it. I heard myself say, what must that look like? And then I taught that voice some manners in the moment. And I said, no. What this looks like is that I got my ass out of bed and put it on a bike. That's what this looks like. And so that has been life-changing for me, that of course I make mistakes. Of course I have bad moments. Of course, even as a business owner, I'm not perfect, but I am finally able to forgive myself and move on and not have it drag me through the dirt of believing that I'm not a worthy human being because I made a mistake. Life's messy and I've finally accepted that.
Sometimes it takes us a long time to accept that. What do you hope, Katherine? I think I know the answer to this, but I want you to answer it. What do you hope is the legacy of your work?
I hope the legacy of my work is for women and mothers in particular to realize that you are in charge of your own happiness. And that if you're looking for someone who is going to relieve the pain that you feel and the suffering that you experience and the way that you speak to yourself, it is impossible for anybody to accomplish that mission other than yourself. No one can hear the way that you speak to yourself, so no one can solve it or change it or diminish it other than you. And so I think that's a real light bulb moment for people when you realize that you have the ability to suffer less is extraordinarily empowering. And I'm living proof. I'm not a magician. I'm just a mom from Richmond, Virginia, and I learned how to slay my dragon. So I'm living proof that it can be done. I didn't wave a magic wand. It didn't happen overnight, but it can be done.
And it's necessary. This is the thing. It's necessary because what is the other option, right? What's the option? To live a life where we're constantly banging ourselves like whack-a-mole, like you shouldn't have done that, couldn't have done that, you can't do this, da 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 da.
Yeah, crazy part, and you alluded to this earlier, is that it's not true. These things that we believe, you were saying earlier, like, I have to go back to work, everybody's going to think I'm a slacker, I have to do this, I have to do this, that we're suffering at our own hand. And I say no more now than I ever have in my entire life. And the world is still spinning and my family is still happy. And, we live in fear. That's the problem with having an externally driven sense of self-esteem, is that you need other people to think you're great in order to breathe and survive. And once you realize that's not necessary, it's fun for me to say no now. And because I have to protect my time and my sanity, and it's just not worth it anymore. But it's like practice. The more you do it, the more you realize that people don't care about you as much as you think they care about you. So just say no, and everybody goes, okay, and they carry
I love it. I love it so much. Okay, so let's make this really practical, because there's a couple things I want to unpack. And I want to highlight that in the pre-recorded interviews that I have, 40 plus interviews, there's a couple that are really interesting and very relevant to this conversation. A conversation with Bett Lucas, who is a VP at a major energy corporation with 6 kids, and a conversation with, there's a couple of lawyers. Emily Kearney is one, and Andrea Henry. So I just want to highlight those really quick, because I think there are times in my life when I hid pregnancies because I was terrified of what what employers were going to think. I've almost my whole career been self-employed, but just what I worried about others. I worried about people in television. I was kind of sort of told in sort of clear-ish terms that I should think about not increasing my family size because it was going to impact my television career. Like, that was a message that was very heavily sort of said, sometimes explicitly, sometimes not. But my point is that I know there's a lot of people listening to this who are saying to themselves, I don't know how to say no. Like, if I say no to that opportunity or to that assignment, even though I know it's going to keep me away from my kids, or even though I know it's going to keep me away from, peace and a rhythm of life that is going to work for me, I can't say no because of X, Y, Z. What are some practical strategies that we can employ and always have in our toolbox to say no with grace and to not be afraid of this external affirmation?
Well, I'll share a short-term solution and a long-term solution. So the short-term solution, somebody taught me this. I grew up in marketing and advertising. And when I came back from maternity leave with my second child, a manager of mine said, Katherine, what time do you want to protect, with your family? And I was like, I want to be home for dinner time. And this was a gentleman, and he said, and he had 2 daughters. And he said, okay, Katherine, I want you to think of your job as a teenage boy is trying to make out with you. And I was like, okay. And he said, your job's job is to take everything you will give it and still want more. So even if you're not at home, you can put in, whatever situation, but that's your job's job. Your job's job is to want more from you than you want to give, just like a teenage boy. And so his advice to me was, draw your line in the sand before the heat of the moment and before you feel pressured to say yes. So for example, he taught me to go to my manager and say, having dinner with my family is important. So if it's okay with you, I want to leave every day by 6 o'clock. I'll be back online by 8. But I was saying it in advance. And this manager, which is a close friend of mine, it's not some weird thing. But, he said, you have to draw a line in the sand before the heat of the moment, because if you don't say these are my boundaries, then this teenage boy is coming at you saying, we need you to be on this conference call, Katherine, and it's in LA. So it's 7 o'clock Eastern, whatever. And then you just cave and you're like, okay, I'll make out with you. And so I'm really good at saying no now. And because I just picture a lot of people coming at me like teenage boys, when I'm, but it works. And then I just kind of snicker and I say, no, I'm not going to do that. Like, I'm not going to make out with you. So that's a short term, solution. And again, the more you say no, the more you realize people don't care as much as you fear that they care. But then in the long term, I talk about in Slay Like a Mother that fast forward on your calendar 2 months from now, and your calendar is not full. It's quite empty. There's a lot of real estate. And so put yourself on your calendar in reoccurring meetings. Maybe it's Monday morning yoga, but it doesn't have to be healthy. It could be wine with your girlfriends, on a Wednesday night. But put it there as reoccurring meetings. And then when the future becomes the present and those 2 months have gone by, you're already built into your calendar of saying no. And you can't always keep all of those appointments, but I put them in purple on my calendar because it's a visual reminder that if there are not enough purple meetings on my calendar, it means I'm falling back into my old ways of giving all of my time away to other people and never saving any of it for myself. So if you put yourself on there first, I promise all the other crap and all the other dentist appointments and kids stuff, it's still going to fit, but you're prioritizing yourself instead of saying there's no room on my calendar for me, but there is in the future.
Amen, friend. I mean, and this is a principle I teach in my time management program, Conquer Your Calendar, where you have to schedule the things that are going to keep your priorities true. The things,
yes,
like really,
yes,
truly. And too often, my memory is failing. I want to say it's Greg McEwen who said this, but that if we don't keep our priorities, the priorities of others are going to become what we fill our calendar with, and that's no fun.
Shows your priorities. So if you're giving all your time away, it actually means, we often say I have a hard time saying no to other people, but that's not actually the truth. The truth is you don't have a hard time saying no to other people. You have a hard time saying yes to yourself. That's the problem, is that we don't believe that we're worthy of our own time. And we believe that the soccer coach and our partner and whoever is the cashier at Trader Joe's is more worthy of our time than we are. And your calendar shows that. It shows your priorities. So I like lots of purple on my calendar.
Oh, I love it. I love that it's purple. That's a good color. That's a good color. Okay. But for anyone who is listening to this and is like, okay, Katherine, Lisa, I get it. Like, yes, I agree with you, but is still having a hard time because, when I was making my transition from minivan meltdown to now how I live, the first boundary I set was picking up my kids from school. I was like, that is going to be my very first firm boundary, because if I have to pick them up at 3:30, if I get to pick them up at 3:30, I have to kind of work backwards from that. That means that I can't take a meeting, at 2:00 or whatever, or there's certain parameters like that would have to make that true in my schedule. But I remember just feeling like, okay, I'll figure out another way to do it. Like I had that boundary, but I still kept scheming in my head, like, how else can I fit things in? I know now that there is such freedom with saying no. But for anybody who really struggles with the opinions of others, okay, well, I don't want to say no to the principal of the school because I'm going to see her every day and I'm going to feel really bad and really guilty. Or I don't want to say no to my mom because we always do Thanksgiving at her house in this way. And I really don't want to disappoint her. What tips do you have for us if it's people that we're really concerned about disappointing?
Well, that's a sign that there's probably a dragon at play, because the bigger the dragon is inside of you, the more you care about what people think about you around you. But I can share a tip that's really helped me. And that is when you're going into any phase of life, let's just say right now, I invite you to write down, what are 3 battles that you really want to win right now? And maybe it's healthy meals with your family. Maybe it's, girlfriend walks in the neighborhood and something else. 3 battles that you want to win. But equally, if not more importantly, I invite anybody watching to list 3 battles that you're willing to lose right now because you can't win them all. And we just want to win at work and at home and as a mother and as a wife and as a friend. And we're going to die trying if that's the metric of success. And so I'll give you an example of a battle that I have decided to lose in my life. So we have 2 children and they're in 2 different schools. And so my husband does a little bit more with my son's school. I do a little bit more with my daughter's school. So we're blessed that both of our children are loved and have support in their own school. But when I show up to my son's school pre-COVID, I feel like a loser because I'm not the one who volunteers there. I don't know a lot of the other parents. If I'm honest, sometimes I'm like, which classroom is he in? Where am I going? Because I'm more involved in my daughter's school. But in those moments when I feel like a loser because it's not me at my best, I say to myself, I decided to lose this battle. I said I cannot be seen as a good mother at my son's school and my daughter's. So we're going to divide and conquer. And this is what losing looks like. And I'm okay with that. And it's uncomfortable and my heart races and I feel like a loser. But when I tell myself that I decided to lose that battle, it's much easier than assuming I can win at every single battle, every single day, and that I'm a loser if I don't. And so, what are 3 things that you're willing to lose and at this season of your life? And maybe it's homeschooling. Maybe you're not going to be the perfect homeschooling mom, in the fall. And that's okay because you're so much more than that. And so just invite that failure and expect it instead of being surprised by it and thinking that you're a loser because of it.
Oh, Katherine, I could talk to you all day, honestly, but I want to pivot to some questions very quickly. And if you are having trouble thinking of, or if this is striking a chord with you, I want you to really reflect on this question. What is currently holding you back from pursuing the life you want? Or what dragon, if you want to use that term, to borrow Katherine's term, what dragon do you really need to slay in order to pursue the life you want? All right, Katherine, we've got some questions from the audience. And our first question is coming from, comments before we do some questions, right? I'm talking to I have my husband is over here. He is my show caller. Okay, some comments from the audience. From Guadalupe Gomez. Heck yes, I unfortunately sabotaged myself many, many times, and I don't want my kids to grow up like this. From Adelaida, it makes sense because I'm trying to live up to everyone's expectations, and I've lost my own expectations on myself. From Melvia, I love the cellulite story. Thank you, Katherine. From Aaron, I'm heading back to work soon, and I'm going to use that visual of the teen. I'm gonna make you like a T-shirt or something, like teenage boy gone. Honestly, that's the best.
I can say no so easily now, and I just picture this like pimply teenage boy, and in my mind, I'm like, I'm not gonna make out with you right now, and yeah, it's definitely a better way. But to the comment about not wanting to pass it on to your children, I'll share that the final chapter in Slay Like a Mother is called Raising Dragon Slayers. And it's how once we slay our own dragons as mothers, how do we help our children become resilient against these that, have the ability to take them down. And one of the things that I do is when I'm putting my children to bed, we share our peak and our pit from the day. So the best part of the day and the worst part of the day. And what this will teach your children, I mean, I have mothers that tell me they do it as young as, 3 years old. And what it'll teach your children is that every day has a high point and a low point. And so, in other words, every day can and should have a point that sucks, that you are able to talk about and you are able to put words to and say, it hurt my feelings when somebody made fun of me, or I felt bad because I turned an assignment in late. Whatever it is that your child reveals to you, it's teaching them that they don't have to be perfect in order to be loved, and that their mom and their dad or whoever has crappy parts of their day. And that's what's so important, because dragons of self-doubt thrive in silence and darkness and avoidance. And that's where they are most ferocious. So if a child can learn to say, this is what sucked about my day, that dragon of self-doubt has a lot less power over them.
Oy, oy, oy. These are very important things that we need to keep at the forefront. What in your research surprised you, Katherine? Was there anything that really surprised you in all the research you did studying all the moms?
I think it surprised me the depth at which women go to lie about, the pain that we feel. And I think it's so fascinating as mothers that when it comes to our own children, we are terrified of our child being bullied. We're even more terrified of our child bullying another child, yet we bully ourselves all day, every day, and we think nothing of it. And it has to stop, because this pain and suffering of self-doubt lives inside of the most influential human beings on the planet, mothers, who are raising the next generation. And, if you can't find the strength right now within you to slay this dragon, do it for your children. Because children who are raised by a mother who learns these skills and learns to love herself, even through the darkest of times and the deepest of doubts, is the greatest gift that you could give your parents. I mean, your children, and your parents too, maybe. But even it's you can't teach a child to play basketball if you can't play basketball. You can't teach a child to cook if you can't cook. So becoming a dragon slayer, if for no other reason than to help your children develop those skills, is a very worthy cause.
100%. I agree so wholeheartedly. So this conference is all about possibility in motherhood. And it is a question that I asked all of the speakers in the pre-recorded interviews. And I'm going to ask you right now. If a mom came to you and said, Katherine, I just don't think it's possible for a mom to be a great mom and pursue her dreams at the same time, what would you say to her?
I would say that you need to change your expectation, and that you need to create your own definition of success. And all too often we follow other people's definition of success. It has to be a lot of money. It has to be a lot of responsibility. It has to be whatever it is. And we blindly follow, these unwritten rules. But if you can write down your own definition of success, as my therapist had me do many years ago, she said, Katherine, what's your definition of success in life? And I thought, I don't know. Like, my only definition of success was career success. And so my definition of success in life was completely unknown to me. And I stared at a blank page in my journal for a long time. And then when I really wrote it down, I said, success in life to me is holding my husband's hand, and it's, having dinner with my grandmother who was alive at the time, and it's living in the present moment. And my point in saying that is, when it becomes your own definition of success, it becomes a lot more achievable. And so I was like, well, I can hold my husband's hand. I can have lunch with my grandmother. I can write handwritten thank you notes. And so when it becomes your own, it actually becomes more realistic, as opposed to externally driven is more like, I have to have this degree or this job title or this salary. And to your point earlier, it is a very telltale sign that there is a dragon of self-doubt when any success that you have lasts 8 days. You know, so you're vying for something you wanted. It's a promotion, it's another child, it's whatever. And then you achieve that goal and you're really proud of yourself for like 7 days. And then you're like, what's next? And it's just this machine of emptiness that no matter what you put in the top, it's always depleted. And that's what my therapist told me many years ago. She said, Katherine, you have a hole in the bottom of your bucket. And you just insist on putting new stuff in the top in order to fill the bucket up. But if you just plug the hole in the bottom and learn to love yourself, you'll have to work a whole lot harder to keep the bucket full.
That's such an important visual. And I think it's an important visual even in like criticism. You know, like if you have a bucket and it's full, somebody says something about you, one little hole. Somebody else says something about you, another little hole, another little hole, another little hole. And people are judging us anyways. That's the phrase that I have in my head right now. The people right now, right here, right now, you and I, there are people in the world who have other opinions of us that perhaps are not our own opinion of us. And who cares? Like, who cares? It's just, and it's, I think for me, it's taken, you know, in my minivan meltdown period, it was a lot of finding soft places to land. So like good friends, good family, counselors, therapists, all the things. So that when I did go into that place of self-condemnation or like all the criticisms that you know, there was a safe place to land. But it was also time. Like I had to also just like I almost put pressure on myself to slay the dragon immediately, and I felt bad that I wasn't slaying it fast enough. Like just that history or that story of perfectionism can also play into our ability to heal. And so for anyone who is listening to this who feels like there's just no way that I can change, we're here to tell you you can. And not only that you can, but that it's for your good and it's going to benefit you. It's going to benefit your kids. Katherine, where can people go to learn more about you?
You can follow along our adventures, either my personal Instagram, which is Wintsch, Wintsch, or Slay Like a Mother on Instagram or Facebook. And we invite everybody to follow along and learn how to slay together, because it's definitely, you know, a worthy cause, a worthy mission, and it's absolutely doable.
And before we lose you, Katherine, we are excited to give away a couple copies of your ebook, Slay Like a Mother. And like, just look how pretty this cover is. Like, is this not just the prettiest cover? It's so pretty. I love that it's got like, it's a little bit metallic. Anyway, so pretty. So if you would like an e-copy of the book, use the hashtag, the Possibility Mom Conference. You must use the hashtag. Feel free here, Katherine, smile. And if you want to take a picture of us, use that and use the hashtag. Okay, ready? 3, 2, 1, take a picture. Yay! Slay your dragons. Katherine, thank you so much. It is always a pleasure to hang out with you. And I am so grateful for you and the work that you're doing. Keep on slaying dragons all over the world, Katherine. I'm so grateful to know you.
Thank you. You do the same.
Yay! Oh boy, guys. That was all kinds of amazing. All right. I want to read a couple comments that have come in. From Joanna. I feel like I'm not worthy of staying healthy and fit, and that I should focus on being a mom and good wife. When I do have time to work out, I clean the house or watch TV. Joanna, thank you so much for that comment. And what I think is interesting about that comment is it goes back to that wheel. So remember what I was talking about in the women's school? I'm a strategist, and I take people through what it means to be whole. And this is why I think this concept of a holistic approach, an integrated life, is so important, because we can't just succeed. Like I said, my wound was career. You can't just succeed at that one. But similarly, we can't let the health one shrivel up and die, because guess what? we unfortunately, and sometimes quite, I don't want to be too grim, but quite literally, like, we have to take care of ourselves if we want to take care of the people in our lives that matter most to us. Now, Katherine brought up something that was so interesting to me, where she was, it's lost my brain. Hold on. It's going to come back. It's going to come back. It's going to come back. Nope, it's gone. Oh, it's gone. She said something so good that I was just going to bring up about being whole, and oh well, it's gone. I'm sure it'll come back. But the point is that we cannot allow that wheel to like fall out of sync, because we need, I remember. It's that the most important person, moms being such an important role. But let me just say this to you right now. Arguably, the most important person in your child's life is you. I'm going to say that one more time for all the people in the back. The most important person in your child's life is you. Maybe tied for first with your husband, but like leave them out of this for just a second. If we do not take care of ourselves, what happens? We have adrenal failure. We are resentful and frustrated. We are overweight. We are eating Dorito chips locked in the pantry because either we haven't given ourselves enough time to prepare a proper meal or a healthful meal, or we're so stressed that we need to find relief and we're doing it through food. We need to take care of ourselves if we want our children to thrive, because we are arguably the most important person in their lives. If you agree with me, give me a big amen in the comments. From Blanca, self-doubt is holding me back, fear of failure, and perfectionism. And let's go ahead and throw some other comments into the screen, but let me talk about Bianca's, sorry if I'm reading it wrong. Perfectionism for me is a very challenging one. I'm just going to be super transparent. All kinds of things about hosting an online conference that I know nothing about, and software and programs and creating things in order to be, like organized and efficient. Oh my word, steep learning curve in hosting an online conference. And I found myself at multiple points today, just multiple points, being like, why are you even bothering? Like, if it's not perfect, like, it's not going to be good. It's not going to be up to your standard. Da, 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 da. And like I mentioned earlier, perfectionism is really a shield. I didn't mention this quote earlier, but I'm getting to it. My book, The Possibility Mom, I have a copy of it somewhere over here, but my book, The Possibility Mom, I let, if I'm not mistaken, 4 deadlines come and go. The book took me 2.5 years start to finish, not because I am some prolific, like, oh my gosh, like austere writer. No, but because I was so gosh darn concerned with getting it perfect that I was terrified of putting it out into the universe. And it was funny because I was pregnant with our 6th baby, James, if I'm not mistaken, pregnant with James, when I signed the book contract. And I remember saying to myself, oh yeah, it's okay. It's just like, I'm having a baby. Obviously, I get a free pass on like my book extension. No big deal. Then we got pregnant again. And I was like, oh, I'm just tired. Like, there's no way I can write a book when I'm pregnant. Like, it's okay. I'll just, let it come and go. And then we were renovating. And then we were moving. And then, and the book got pushed 4 times. And I am very happy to tell you this story of how it finally got published. Or finished, rather. I was yet again pregnant Have I mentioned how many kids I have? I have 8 children. I was yet again pregnant, and I was going to a marketing conference. It was a conference for people building online membership communities. And it was in my hometown, Toronto, Canada. And I was so pregnant. I think I gave birth like 3 weeks after. Like I was so pregnant. And I was at the back because I was like really uncomfortable. My back hurt, my hips hurt, everything hurt, my feet were swollen. And I had my legs up like this, like on a chair. And I had my computer like kind of balanced because my belly was so big, like this. And there was a speaker. His name is James Wedmore. And he is a online entrepreneur. He talks a lot about mindset in his podcast and all kinds of things like that. And he was giving a keynote. And he said something that changed my life forever. He said that perfectionism is really a shield from being judged. Perfectionism is really a shield from being judged. And the faster you can get over that, the faster you can start living your most ideal life. And I remember with all of my pregnant being, and it was so much effort, I was like, this is why I haven't finished the book. Oh my gosh. And I just had this like moment of liberation where I was like, no more perfectionism. Perfectionism be gone. And I was so rude. I'm so sorry, James Wedmore. If you and I ever get to meet in real life, I'm so sorry. Because I spent the rest of his talk at the back of the room, so rude, on my computer. And I wrote like this. Like, I just remember I did not move. I just sat in that chair. I remember people were talking around me, and I was just like, finish the book. And I finished a huge section of The Possibility Mom, sitting in that conference center, 100 million months pregnant, ready to give birth, because I finally clicked in my head that perfectionism was simply a shield from being judged. So I hope that helps, Bianca. Because it's a thing. It's a thing. And the faster we can learn to fail, the faster we can move forward. It is like it's literally like essential. It's an essential learning. All right, let's cue to some comments from the audience. You guys, is this fun? Are you having fun? This is fun for me. I hope you're having fun. Our next guest is coming on in a moment, and I'm so excited about her. So you definitely want to stay tuned. I hope the kids are in bed. I hope you're all quiet, like happy wherever you are. Those of you who are fellow Eastern Daylight Time, I hope that your kids are happily quiet so you can enjoy a little bit of time for yourself. All right, from Carter Brown. If we audibly affirmed ourselves, think about what our kids would do. This is a beautiful thing, Carter, when you think about it. Watching that video that Katherine's team produced with all of that negative self-talk, like to be honest, I cried the first time I watched it, because I was like, oh my gosh, the things that we tell ourselves sometimes. And imagine if we stopped. Imagine if we said out loud, like, hey, you just made an amazing dinner. I challenge everybody to like literally just start saying affirming things about yourself out loud. Megan Clark says, I feel like I can't even take the time to prioritize. I'm just too busy with the essential. I too am a mom of many children. You know, Megan, I hear you and I feel you. And like I was sharing earlier about this time of pandemic, there was a time, you know, in the early part of the pandemic when both my husband and I were working with no external childcare, with all the things. And I just was like, oh my gosh, are we going to make it? Here's the thing that I want to share that we're going to get into with our next guest. And that's the notion of, if we stay in crisis, it's very difficult to create. At that time that I'm talking about, crunchy pandemic time, I would just turn every corner and I would be like, who made this mess? Who made this mess? And I remember the phrases in my head were, my house is always going to be messy. My house is always going to be messy. It's never going to get better. I just remember, like, similar to the video that Katherine shared, it was all so negative. And guess what happens when we stay negative? We don't even attempt to find solutions. And this gets like deeply like patterned. us not finding solutions. And so what I would say to you is, Megan, I'm with you. I hear you. And that I think sometimes it has to begin, not sometimes, all the time. It has to begin with a question of, okay, well, how can we fix it? What could be made possible? How can I lighten my load even if there's no childcare available? What are things that can be made possible? I think we might have time for one more comment. So from Julie Hawkins, guys, this is really fun. I can see your pictures on the comments. I love it. I want more happiness in my job. I want to feel competent in my job. I want to feel less tug of war between my family and my desires. I think this question or this statement, Julie, again, like when I was in that minivan meltdown time, and again, times recently, like with the pandemic, constant guilt. And I was interviewed for my book on a podcast, and I'll never forget it was like clanging gong realization. I had never really thought about it before. And, the conversation was really like organic and easy, to be honest. And then she threw me this question, and I was quite surprised at my own response. So she said, how do you know when you have achieved work-life balance? And I've never liked the phrase work-life balance because, like, is true balance possible? Is it always like, the word balance, I think, just has a lot of weight to it, a lot of baggage to it. I think there's a lot more nuance to the conversation than like true work-life balance. But what came out of my mouth, and it came out of my mouth like this, and I just remember being like, oh my gosh, this is a realization I'm having, is that I believe that that kind of balance, or whatever word you want to maybe replace that with, if balance has too much baggage for you, comes when you feel no guilt, when you do not feel guilt anywhere you are, because you know that over here I have time with my family, and over here I have time for my work, and over here I have time for myself, and over here I have time for my spouse. Like Katherine was talking about, putting purple in her calendar. Tomorrow at in the middle of the day at some point, I can't remember exactly, but we're going to talk about the truth about time management with Laura Vanderkam, who has written like 100 books on the topic of work life and time management. She wrote a book called I Know How She Does It, which is essential reading, I think, for any working mom. Anyway, I really do believe that time management is really about priority management, and that we can find ways to get creative with our available time and our available resources. But we've got to begin with the question of how or what can I make possible? I think we might have time for one more. Do we have time for one more? Michelle, I'm glad you like the dancing. I was a competitive cheerleader in university, and I just believe in the power of dance. Like, it's just like, it gets you out of your head. I have to come back to this habit, but when we lived in Toronto, I was very much in the habit of, right before my kids got home from school, with my toddlers at home, I would be, working for a period, and then around 3:00. So my kids would be walking in the door around 3:30 or something. Around 3:00, before my big kids would come home, we would blast on the speakers some kind of anything, just whatever kind of fun music. Sometimes it was the Wiggles, like little kid music, and then sometimes it was oldies and classic rock or whatever. And we would dance, and that would always be my transition between kid time and work time and kid time. So anyways, I love dancing too. And if you were all here with me in Florida in a conference, I just want to share with you that there would be epic dance parties in whatever ballroom that we would be in. So anyways, all right. I want to talk about our next guest, because again, perhaps you're with us. Perhaps, you're like with me and Katherine, and you're saying, okay, I've got to slay these dragons. I really want to find more freedom. I really want to find more peace. I don't want to be shackled by the opinions of others, but you're struggling with what to do next. The exercise of going from minivan meltdown to not being concerned about the opinions of others when you for a very, very long time have lived over here being very concerned about the opinions of others is a very, very challenging thing to change. And somebody who has helped me tremendously and continues to help women all over the world in their pursuit of wholeness and their pursuit of an integrated design of life and understanding that we are worthy of the dreams in our hearts and things that we want to pursue. Everybody, welcome to the Possibility Mom Conference, the beautiful January Donovan. Come on, January, look at you. Oh my gosh, you are so
I threw it on together like 15 minutes. It's some like I time myself. Baby's in bed. We got this.
Oh, January.
It's real. The dance is real, but I love it.
Welcome to the conference, January Donovan. So January is the founder of the Women's School. She is a self-worth strategist. She is a coach. She has worked with thousands of women in the pursuit of wholeness. And I'm so excited to introduce her all to you here on the Possibility Mom Conference. January, how are you tonight?
I am awesome. I am grateful to be here. I think it's a privilege to be able to learn. I was just learning from you and your stories, and I just believe so much in the strength and I think the leadership of mothers in every arena of life. And so I think this is just a great thing that you're putting on, Lisa. So I'm grateful to be here, ready to learn and grow and share. So thank you for being here. All babies in bed? No, not really. I have teenagers now.
We had to put a lock, like literally a lock, like the kind of like lock you have to use on the outside, because my children learned, they're so smart. They learned how to like pick all locks in my house. And so anyways, so there's a lock and it's literally like I'm locked in. It's
That's a good training. We need to have a real training about that kind of
boundaries. So I'm moving on at this part in the conference because Katherine Wintsch just talked to us about slaying the dragon and all the things that we might be telling ourselves that are really holding us back. But that pivot of going from feeling like you're in survival mode, that pivot of feeling like you are kind of on autopilot, that pivot to not allowing the opinions of others to dictate the quality of your life can be very difficult. And you have developed several strategies and programs and just some really essential tools for moms. And so what I really want to talk about with you is how to get out of survival mode for good. So January, first question I want to ask you is, why do you think so many moms are stuck in survival mode? And before you respond, if this is you, if you feel like you're stuck in survival mode, just let us know in the comments and post any questions that you might have, and then we will make some time at the end to ask January. So January, why are so many moms stuck in survival mode?
It's such a great integrated question because I think that we are swimming upstream as mothers. And so in order to answer this question, I think we have to look at the context in which the world shifted in the last 100 years. And specifically in the last 50 years, in 1983, internet literally dramatically shifted our life, which means that our perception, our perspective in the world has dramatically shifted. So motherhood does not look the same as our parents looked. And so we were shoved in the world where it was so, visual. So all of a sudden, we're navigating a world that is unknown to most women. Compounding that, I think, is, and you have to put context into how we women are able to manage life. So it's important to put context into the narrative of why so many of us are depleted. But compounding that, I think, is that in a world that's shifted, it's not that we are taught even how to manage this world. So most of us learn to be mothers while we're actually giving birth into our second child, our first child. There is, I think, a lack of preparation of understanding who we are first as human and woman and mother that is necessary for us to actually transition into this beautiful call called mother. And I think that the narrative is that we are to be pulled from every different direction, and the false confusion of narrative compounding the lack of skills of how to manage boundaries, how to manage our mind, how to command our emotion, how to clean the kitchen efficiently, how to talk to our children, how to connection skills are so lacking in our, even in our school system. Decision making, managing our emotion, it should be taught in every classroom. And so as mothers, we kind of walk into motherhood already with a deficit of skills that are necessary to now not only teach your child to swim, but you have to first learn how to swim, which means you know how to actually own yourself. So when I've done so many trainings for moms, and I would say, so how were you taught to be a mom? Or, who trained you to be a mom? And we almost get caught off guard answering that question. It's like, well, I took the Lamaze class and I had the baby class, and really what I'm asking is who taught you mind management, who's teaching us. So I think we're in this place simply because culturally the world dramatically shifted, and secondly, we're not prepared enough. So two really major factor, and the false expectations of motherhood right now, it's like fuel to the fire. And so it's just it's almost like the world is stacked up against us, and the narrative is something that I think you are trying to shift. And so I just think that we need to shift the world's narrative of what motherhood is, because motherhood is essential. The world will cease without moms. So I think that's where we are. We're catching up.
What's interesting, I remember when I had my first child, John, and so this was 11 years ago. And I remember I didn't read all the books. I read some books, and it was at the beginning, like 11 years ago, is when forums were really popular. So Facebook was definitely like picking up, but like not like it is today. So there were like all these forums, and I purposefully stayed away from them because they confused me. But I think as a result, I had no idea what I was doing. I remember when the nurses left the hospital, I was like, oh my gosh, like, no. I remember being like, come back. Like I was an infant. I have no idea what to do. And so I do think, like, I used to say this all the time, like, you have to go to take a test to like get a fishing license or like a driver's license or like anything license, but where there's no license for motherhood. Why do you think we lost training? Because I feel like in generations past, there was training. Life was more communal, maybe. I don't know. I'm asking the question, like, why do you think we lost training?
Because I don't think we think about it integratedly. We think motherhood is separate from everything else. It's like motherhood, and here's my work life, and here's my relationship, and here's my friends, and so we don't see motherhood as actually the fabric in which society is supposed to actually function. So we don't see the importance and the value of the preparation of motherhood. I mean, I was very privileged because I had a mentor who, for 3.5 years trained me with skills I never thought I needed in motherhood. Honestly, Lisa, I am eternally grateful because, her training was to clean the kitchen and make sure it's not half hour, but 15 minutes, to make my bed, to actually get rid of comparison and competition, to command my emotion, to communicate my boundaries effectively, to learn how to connect in depth, to learn to actually understand my worth and who I am with an internal perspective, not external, all of which I didn't think that was connected to motherhood. I was just receiving this gift, but I didn't understand it until I was in, sort of in this life called mom, that I realized, oh, I needed all those bag of tricks. And so I think that we are not training women because we don't see the value almost of mothers today as the fabric of society. So we see it as a lesser calling. And I think that's a tragedy, because it doesn't matter what I achieve. If I lose myself and my family in the way, there's no fulfillment. And every mother knows that. I could be hundreds of millions of dollars, write X amount of book, and my children are a hot mess. I go home and I feel like it's a wreckage and I'm not peaceful, all of which I cannot even enjoy. Let's flip that around. My home is peaceful. I love who I'm becoming, and no, it's not perfect, but there's peace and there's, emotional command, and your children are happy. Guess what? That book or whatever you're trying to achieve, that work or being a nurse or teacher, there actually is so much more fulfillment. Why? Because there's an order to it. It's when we separate the connection of who we are as mothers from the world that we lose sight of the very thing that actually brings us meaning. So it's a tragedy, and we've got to shift the narrative, and it begins with us. And I'm like, if this depletion narrative has to end in this generation, and it should begin with a life of wholeness for mothers and the next generation. We cannot hand over another generation of women who assumes that motherhood is a lesser version of ourselves and a place for exhaustion, depletion, where how are we supposed to give when we've got nothing to give? Mothers are designed to be reservoirs. So that's why, training is about filling our reservoir. So that's why we have the women's school, because right now I felt as though, where do you learn? You learn a little tip here, a little blog here, a little, and I say, no, it doesn't work that way. It's like me training for the Olympics and dabbling into training. I'm just going to do a little workout here, and maybe on Tuesday I'll, do sit-ups. No, it has to be integrated, consistent, and lifetime.
So, it's like my minivan meltdown happened because my life was not integrated. I was living over here in a very siloed, literally, and just increasing all my skills. And when I look back on that period of my life, truthfully, I was investing in all the online programs, all the mentorships, but it was all business. I was going on all the conferences, anything I could do to get my hands on to improve in the skill of business and career, I was doing. And what happened on the other side? Really, it was that little section of the wheel was the only section that was, and the danger that happens, and we've got a great visual of this wheel that I'd love to pull up. The danger that happens when you tell us the danger. What is the danger when we only work on one little section of our wheel?
Then if we're just fulfilling one cup, that means we're just everything else. If we're not managing and filling up the other cups, eventually our contribution, let's just say that you're filling the cup of your contribution wheel, what you're called to do outside your home, right? So you're filling that cup because everything else is depleted. It actually sucks all that life out of it because you're trying to fill up everything else. So that cup is never going to be full. So what happens is that everything gets depleted. And so here's why the wheel is important, because we create blanket narratives and we're like, I'm just a hot mess mama. No, you're not. Maybe the relationship, maybe the home life, maybe, and we bring clarity to the fact that our life has to just be a constant managing of our wholeness. So if we don't pay attention to the different wheels, we wake up one day and realize, who am I? Wait, my health. I'm physically in pain. I'm lonely. I have no friends. What happened to my intimate relationship? Where's God? Wait, I hate going to my house. So I think the thing that's so important for us to recognize that I want mom to say is nobody showed you how. So we have to be forgiving and we have to be tender with the fact that it's not like anybody trained you. So we're beating ourselves over something that we were never prepared for. It's almost like beating myself over writing a paper and getting an F on it if nobody ever taught me A, B, and C. That's really what it feels like, to feeling like what I flunked the SAT, but nobody ever taught me A, B, and C. And so I think as women, we have to pay attention to every part of our arena and manage every part of it simultaneously. And because here's the thing, how we do anything is how we do everything. And I tell my kids that all the time. They were taking shortcuts, and I was like, how you do anything, how you do everything. There's natural consequences to life. And so I think that if we teach our children to actually look at the wheel, and I show my children the wheel, and I'm like, you're 8, you look at the wheel, which part of this wheel do you need training? Right? Because I think that's what we need to understand is that it's not, and you said this that really, moved me. It's not that you can't have it all. You said you just can't do it all. Right? And I think that's an important shift of narrative. And so I think we need to look at our life as connected and not segregated. And once we see ourselves connected and segregated, then we actually value every part of ourselves with respect. Right? Because it's easy to numb ourselves with one arena and wake up one day and realize, ugh, and regret, resentment, and rage, by the way, becomes, and this is what I'm seeing, because I also, train women that are older. It's just like, I'm done. I've given everything I've got. Motherhood was done. I don't want to know you like, grandma, I'll just do my part. Why? Because they're so exhausted from giving everything they've got because they never pay attention to the rate. It's like, no, it's my turn. Now it's me time. It's because it wasn't along the way managed, but nobody taught us how. We can't blame, I said, women, we have got to understand our narrative and the context in which we were trained as women so we don't beat ourselves up over. We can't change the past. The past is a mere compass of what the future can be. And if we operate with that perspective, then we're not guilting our way through the imperfections of our life, rather creating solutions to cultivate a life that is whole. And I just love the word wholeness because I feel like that's what's allowed us to give from an overflow. And that's wholeness is really about sustained generosity, which is what fulfills every woman. So
if you were listening to this and it's striking, it's just like hitting you in the gut, like it hit me in the gut the first time I heard it, just please feel free, hit that little share button, share this with a friend, share this on your timelines, because the only way we're going to change the narrative is if we have these painful conversations. So, January, if people are listening and they're saying, okay, this is me. I have focused so much on this section of the wheel at the complete depletion of everything else. Where do we begin? What do we start to think instead? Because I can tell you, when I was in that minivan meltdown period, I was like, there's no way I can change. There's no way I can set boundaries in my schedule. What are people going to think? How my clients are going to be disappointed if I'm not working around the clock. So what is the thing that we do to begin the journey of change?
Yes. So first of all, wherever we are, whatever our narrative is, I want women to understand that that has actually been neurologically wired. And why that's important is because imagine if you were first learning how to drive a car, right? You had to remember how to turn the wheel, look back. You actually had to consciously think about everything you had to do. But now, fast forward, you're probably driving the car and feeding a kid, dancing, texting. Why? Because now it's subconscious. So the narrative of depletion, frustration, guilt is like also when you're driving, you inherited it, didn't know how to manage it because nobody showed you how. And now it's so habitual that it's neurologically wired, that even though we want to get rid of it, we go back to a wiring. It's literally a physical wire. Our brains are made of 100 billion neurons when we were born, and they're wired, right? So for example, if you grew up thinking that a beautiful woman looks like a stick figure, and all of a sudden you're 13 and you realize, well, I'm not beautiful, because the metric in which you define a beautiful woman has been neurologically wired. So what I mean by that, why that's important, is because neuroscience in the last 25 years has given us so much information called neuroplasticity and neurogenesis. And this is why I give women this information, because it gives you hope. You are not stuck. You are not a label. You are not your story right now. Okay. And why? Because scientifically, we can actually, neuroplasticity is the process of rewiring our brain. So our self-worth, our self-talk in so many ways was neurologically wired habitually. Just like now, can you unlearn to drive a car? Probably it will take work, right? It will take work. So anxiety, stress, negative self-talk is also so hopeful, because we can actually, through neuroplasticity, rewire our brain. So I tell every mom's there, listen, we owe it to ourselves to rewire our brain, because remember, it's not what we tell our kids, it's how we show up for our kids that gets wired into their brain cells. So there's so much hope. So that's the first thing, is that we need to really understand the neurological process of rewiring our brain so that we can have sustained transformation. So we wire it from the inside out, changing our brain has a conscious and subconscious mind, and we change it from the subconscious level. So that's kind of a flash thing. So that's the first thing, that, mindset is massively important. The second part is that we really need to redesign our self-image. Self-image is so massive. Nobody talks about it. And when I ask women about self-image, it's often seen as body image. When we actually talk about self-image in the women's school, it's actually the opinion that we hold of ourselves that has been neurologically wired for decades. So if somebody told you you're ugly, you're just slow, you're awful, or you've told yourself that, that's now the opinion you hold of yourself, which determines your decisions and your behavior. So we actually have to rewire our self-image. As a matter of fact, the first thing we tackle is the dream, but then the self-image. Because the self-image is who we are choosing to be. So we can't operate from the past, we can operate from the future. So that's what I tell women, is that how can we get out of survival mode? We manage our mind, we redesign our self-image. And third is that we have got to learn new set. We should have a skill school, and that's what the women's school is, a skill school. But it should be, we don't even have home economics in our school, because for some reason, and when I was taking home economics, it was both for men and women, but we are expected to eat clean, manage our health, be so fit, and not actually taught how to cook or clean the kitchen. Can you imagine the robbery? But by the way, make sure your kitchen is spotless, like every whatever Instagram image, and make sure you're super fit. And we have zero training on it. That's only one thing. That's in every arena. Like, your house is supposed to look like this. Who taught us how to clean our couch or clean our kitchen, clean our toilet? I mean, my kids, I'm like drill sergeant mom. I'm like, that's the toilet. And you've got 5 minutes and you time yourself. And it doesn't matter what you accomplish someday, you're going to clean that toilet because that's your accomplishment today. I mean, just training that my first mentor, my training was to make my bed like an army. Like, that was in college, I had to make it. And it's in these small, minute skill set, compounding skills, that we create a masterpiece. Like, if you think about a beautiful painting, imagine the little details of skills and mastery that allows us to create. So really, it's about a life of growth. That's what it boils down to. I think moms need to train. I think we can't give what we don't have, but when we do, we can see that we can actually create massive impact in our home. That it begins with us. So can we get out of survival mode? Absolutely.
Let me just unpack that in a very practical example from COVID time over here at the canning house. So as I shared, we went from having help, having some babysitters, having cleaning help and all the things in a part-time capacity to then none, because with the quarantine, we're, not letting anybody in. And I was like, why are all the dishes piling up? Like, I remember when I was observing it all, I was like, that's strange. All of a sudden, all the dishes are piling up. And I realized because I had not instructed my children, like, what to do when the sink was full. They kind of just kept piling things in the sink, and it just continued to get full. And it's not, it might sound like a silly example, but it just dawned on me that, okay, they clearly don't know what to do when the sink is full. And so I literally just said, hey guys, we are all pitching in because we are all contributing to this house, and we're all together during this quarantine, whether we like it or not. So it's time to learn some skills. And I'm sharing this in such a simple way because I think this is a pain point of a lot of moms, kids who don't clean up, or maybe there's a certain theme, a certain nagging theme, like you didn't close the cabinet, or you didn't put the milk away, or whatever it is, moms, everybody, go into the chat right now and just type in, what is your biggest pain point when it comes to your house? But here's the thing that's so awesome about what you're saying, is that there's hope. There is hope that not only from just from all of it, there's hope that we can learn new skills. There's hope that our children can learn new skills. And there's hope that we can change our lives by understanding how much our mindset and our skill set has to do with it. Okay, so January, help us paint the picture of what is at stake if we don't do this. If we stay in survival mode, if we just sort of say it's too hard, I'm too much of a lost cause, there's no way, I'm just going to be a hot mess mom forever. What's at stake if we don't?
Our life. That's what's at stake. It's a life of a roller coaster. It's anxiety. I think what's at stake is our contribution to humanity. Because every woman, every mother is designed with a divine purpose. So when we're in survival mode, our amygdala is hijacked. We actually can't think outside of just trying to survive. So what's at stake is what and who we were designed to be in this world. And as a byproduct of not fulfilling our purpose, resentment, regret, guilt, frustration, and honestly, comparison and competition. That is probably the most tangible, because when you're not living in your divine purpose because life isn't whole, because nobody showed you how, it's easy to look around. And I think, it's an easy thing to do because I tell women, it's like an Advil. It makes us feel better about, certain parts about who we are, but it also, it'll catch us later. It makes us feel bad about some parts of our life. So really what's at stake is that we do not fulfill our God-given mission and who we're created to be. And as a byproduct, our children become the collateral damage, and so is our marriages, and so is our friendship. Because a roller coaster of our life is not the way we were designed. It is not sustainable. And it's really a prison, but most of the time we're not aware that we can change. And in the Women's Code, I talk about the first prison we free ourselves from is really awareness. Awareness is the first prison, because if we don't know what we don't know, then we just think that this is what it could be, that this is what life is supposed to be, that I'm supposed to just, slave away for my children, or I'm supposed to just give everything at the cost of my peace and sanity. Like, it's not, and I think we have to, when I tell women, I say, how do you know you're in a good marriage if you've never even looked at other marriages? How do you know how to organize your house if you haven't learned from every woman? Right. And I think that the important thing here, Lisa, that I always tell mom is that, I've got 8 children, I'm running a company, and I'm still training every single day. And I say that because I think we never arrive. we're always in a constant, I think, receptivity mode, which is growth and learning. And that actually is a really freedom point. Because once you're constantly learning, you start to realize how much you don't know, and you become a sponge, and it's a dance party. I mean, like today, I saw my kids' dishes pile up, and there's a standard in my house. It's like, no, we don't. So I was same thing as your example. I'm like, I need to really show them how this is done in like 2 minutes or 5 minutes, whatever it was. Both my girls did it. They make dinner, and I was like, why is there a pile here? And so she's like, well, mom, I was doing this, and I was like, no. So literally, I stopped. I said, this is how we do it, and I showed her. I was like, because sometimes telling, it doesn't register. Like somebody tells me something, so I have to really like train my mind. But it's almost like as a mom, you have to do that all day long, and it's like the training is sometimes it's constant and it gets exhausting, but you can't give up on it because while their brains are getting wired too. And so I have to be patient. I'm like, I've said this like 300 times, maybe 350 times. No, but they're getting wired too, just like we're getting wired, of how to do things. And so, gosh, does it require my patience? And a constant like, life is good, life is beautiful. Life is beautiful. And life happens for me and not to me. So this is a thing too. One of the things that are saying it's important is that words are so powerful, and how we use words shift our mindset. So in our shifting our mindset, we have to really learn how to manage the words that we say, because they really impact our perspective. So it's kind of a side tangent.
No, it's very important. Before we get to some questions, because we've got a couple comments from our viewers, I think this is why there can be such mommy wars, if you will. One of our mutual friend, Stephanie Weinert, is one of the interviews that I did as a part of the collection of 40 interviews. And if you go to thepossibilitymomconference.com and sign up for free access to all of that, you can go and gain all that access there. But something we hit on in Stephanie's interview that I think is so important to this conversation is she talked about how, the stay-at-home mom might be judging the work-at-home mom or working mom because she feels like maybe she's made a decision that's less than. And then conversely, the working mom might be looking at the stay-at-home mom and she might be thinking, oh man, like, am I making a mistake? And all of this comes out of woundedness and narrative and what has been ingrained in our brains in a very neurologically patterned way. I'll be honest with you, in my own experience, I had a really strong narrative about the importance of working. It was like so important to be successful. I mentioned earlier this evening that I was in so many words told, like almost explicitly told, don't get pregnant again because it's going to impact your ability to work in television, right? And then conversely, I had this whole narrative in my head about stay-at-home motherhood, that it was hard and that it was challenging, and that I had a whole other slew of baggage that I carried with me about that. But when we can, number one, be aware of what's going on in our mind and then write a new story, pretty exciting things can happen. So that is much what you unpack in the Women's School, and I'm grateful for you for doing that. And I want to now pivot to some questions from our viewers, and there is still time, if you are watching this either live or on the replay, there's still time to ask your questions and get your answers. So let's pull up our first comment. I'm going to read one of them here from Jordan Rios. Amen. Motherhood is a greater version of ourselves, not a lesser one. Thank you so much for that, Jordan. And while we're waiting for this comment to come up, I just want to tell you, I love your earrings. Where are your earrings from, January Donovan?
Oh my gosh, I'm so strategic about what I wear. I don't know. This might be like Forever 21 or something.
Oh, really?
I don't, I'm very strategic about the clothes I wear. I don't spend a lot of money on clothes. I just have a few pieces. I'm not attached to any of them, but you can borrow them.
Oh, you're anytime.
It doesn't have to work in a green screen, but thank you, because it's green. If I have a green screen, it doesn't. Anything green doesn't work. So, but thank you. I think Forever 21. Thank you.
I love that. All right. So Sarah Rooney says the brain science is fascinating and so empowering that we can make the changes. Love what the women's school teaches. Thank you, Sarah Rooney. Sarah Rooney is a fellow strategist in the women's school, and I love her dearly. Thank you so much, Sarah. I love that. I've got a comment here on my phone from Guadalupe Gomez. A question, actually. How do we find that divine purpose? January. How do we find our purpose?
Great question. I think that first we have to journey our desires. And desire actually comes from the root word sire, which is of the father. But the only way we find that purpose is that we actually have the skills to do it. Because, if I didn't have the right skill to actually learn how to process my thoughts, manage my emotion, then it's hard for me to discover, sort of God's desire for me. So I actually have to learn certain mindset and certain skill set for me to even begin the journey to discover that divine purpose. I think that our divine purpose gets revealed to us as we continue to grow in awareness and our skill set. So I think it's a real journey, and I think that if we're willing to sort of take in that step, it will reveal itself when we have the right training, I think, to be able to discern it properly. It's a long question. This is like a 5-module training that I do. My trainings are long, and it's because I really like to have comprehensive training. So I think it's a really important question, and it's probably one of the most important questions that we ourselves in our lifetime. So we have to.
If you are around tomorrow, Guadalupe, I am tackling a lot of stuff about purpose in the morning tomorrow on this live stream. So come on back tomorrow, as well as grab the workbook at thepossibilitymomconference.com, because there is lots in there on the topic of purpose. All right, Julie Irwin Hawkins says, my dragon, my negative thought about myself are holding me back. I don't feel good enough at anything. I don't feel like I know what I am. January, what would you say to encourage Julie?
So scripting is a massive thing that we do in the women's school. In our trainings, we have hundreds of scripts. And what script is a proactive way to neurologically rewire our reaction. So what I mean by that, if I'm so horrible, we replace it. You can't erase unless we replace. So, I think first thing is that I would say I don't feel good enough at anything. I'm just not skilled at this yet. Because you can't solve the problem with the same level of skill set. And when my children say, oh, this is, I can't do this, Mom, it's like, no, you just don't have the skill. So I would challenge, you to just say, oh, I'm just not skilled at this. So that's the first step, is rewiring really the habitual reaction. But the second thing is, whatever it is that you feel like you're not good enough, what's the skill that would actually allow you to manage so that you can actually, cross that bridge, right? Is it, I don't know, cleaning the kitchen? Is it more connection skills? Is it more boundaries? Because then you know how to tackle it when you have the specific skill, and it's typically a compounding skill set. So that it's not that you're not good enough, it's just that you just weren't skilled enough. Now you can learn a new skill, and then you will. So that's an important thing, because we just think that I'm just not good enough, and that's it. Labels are dangerous. I think that personality tests are good because it identifies and helps us know where we are in the journey, but it could be dangerous if we think that's who we are forever. I think they're meant to be a starting point that we evolved from, but they're not the end point. So it's really, I'm just not one morning person, January. That's great that you wake up early or whatever it is, or it's great that you can do that, but I just can't. I said, no woman started out knowing how to do this. It's not like I was born, or any woman was born knowing how to play. Even Mozart wasn't born playing the piano. Whatever skill that, we're dealing with. And it's not just my own skill, but, whatever skill that we're trying to work on, Mozart had to develop his skills. Even though he was ordained and designed with a purpose to play beautiful music, he actually had to train. So that's what I would say to you is don't give up. Just figure out the right compounding skills to replace whatever it is that you're trying to get past.
Yeah, I love it. This is a similar question from Carla Martinez. How do we remain encouraged day to day when you have so many slices, like of the wheel, I think she means, that need work or need attention? So how do we remain encouraged?
Great question. Number one, you have to surround yourself with like-minded women who are also growing and dreaming with you. Dreaming comes before discipline. This is so important. A lot of times we're told to have discipline. You got to do this, you got to clean this, you got to organize this, you got to be, but without a dream, that's not sustainable. Its passion means to suffer for what we love. So we need to know what we're suffering for. So we have to identify the dream. You've got to surround yourself with women that are also training and really, hustling to become the best version of themselves. So we actually give a training on the types of friendship, mentor, mentee, and mutual, and why it's important to have the right expectations. So that's the second thing. Number three is that we have to be students. As I think if I were to leave a legacy is that I was a student and that I loved Ryan. And what I mean by that is that we need to be constantly training. That's my husband, by the way. We need to be constantly, training. And what that means is that it takes one step every day to learn a new shift of thinking, a new skill. And Audible is an incredible tool to rewiring our brain. And what I mean by that is that you can actually create books. I put books in my shower. I put books when I'm putting makeup when my kids are not there because it just helps me shift a perspective. And so it's literally you have to make a decision to say enough is enough. It ends with me and it begins with me. If you're tired out there, if you're exhausted, if you're in survival mode, I'm here to tell you that I have seen it thousands of times over where mom they were in that place of depletion, but with just one step with the right skill and the right tool and the right mindset and the right words and the right script, life changed dramatically in a very short amount of time. Most of us were never shown how. If you just say yes, a little tiny yes of saying, I'm going to give myself the gift of learning to grow today practically, you're going to see massive transformation. So I would say begin the journey. Don't dabble on training. Think of motherhood as the Olympics of your lifetime, right? And the gold medal is who you become. And so that's what I tell myself. I said, January, this is the Olympics. My bed, my routine, my boundaries, my skill. And every day do I fall? Every single day. Ask my kids, but you focus on what you can change. You focus on the good. I don't even use the word guilt. I eliminate from my vocabulary. There's words in my house that are illegal. My kids know it. And there's illegal words in our house. And guilt is one of them. I don't use it. And I'm like, no, because I don't want to give myself permission. But it's not like anybody taught us that. Anxiety is illegal. Impossible is illegal. Annoying is illegal. I mean, especially with siblings, because it's one of the biggest wounds. So we have like words that are my children are illegal, but also I don't allow myself to think it. Right? But so we need training on what these words are, what to think, how to think. So take that one step, really, and that's what the wholeness quiz will tell you. And it's discouraging to think, oh my gosh, I'm just like, I don't even know where to begin. I've seen it, but we'll show you it's one thing at a time. It's like you can't eat the whole elephant. And a lot of it really, I tell women, is that we have to be both patient and persistent at the same time all the time. Patient with our growth, persistent with our capacity to grow more. And at the end of all of this, Lisa, I tell women, motherhood is about a life of humility. And if we're willing to be humble enough to say, I don't know, and I can learn more, and I can learn from all women that are, I remember one of my friends, I just had my third child, and I think she had like 7 or 8. And she called me and she said, Jimmy, can I get advice? I really would like to learn how to be a better mom. And this is a mom I admired. This is a mom I looked up to. And I was like, why would you be calling me for advice when you have 7 kids? It's like, well, I just could really use your advice. I could learn from you. And that stuck out to me as it changed me. And so I think that's what I would say is that it's going to require a lot of humility to say, oh, don't have that, but I'm going to just go for it anyway. One step.
I think we have time for one more question. Take one more. Yeah, we can throw it up on the screen. From Mary Ann Lorette. Oh, look at her cute picture. She's got whiskers. When you have preteens, is it imperative to set a routine or have them their independence?
Great question. I think it's both. And what I mean by that is that I tell my children, I say, because in our house is routine based, but I let them write their routine. And so I give them, I said, I will give you the independence that you have earned and that you have showed me you're capable of. So we don't sleep in. My kids know it's like you can sleep in when you're out of this house. In this house, you get up at 7:30, 8, maybe 8:30. That's it. So there's sort of, so routine is important, but I think it's boundaries with freedom. What I mean by that is that there are a set of things that you need to do, but in context of that, there's still boundaries. You can just do whatever you want to do. Boundaries, there's a standard in the house. You have a lot of freedom, but show me your routine. The other day I literally made my child write out, like, how many hours did you play today? How many hours did you work out today, or do skill building? How many hours did you do chores? And he was able to see it for himself because I was trying. It's a workout to try to get your children to have a teen to, because it's a natural, either actually, if you look at the child development, the 0 to 3 actually mimics the preteen years. They are all of a sudden in this burst of new world. They're trying to figure out just like a new child. So you actually have to reteach boundaries and routine. So that's a long, short answer of yes. And so as moms, we need to have script, or say, I need to know that you're able to manage your time because you are responsible for your time before God. So show me that you know how to do it. So my kids write their own routine, and my 8-year-old, my 9-year-old, I'm like, show me your routine. What's your schedule for the day? And if they know how to do it, I'm like, sorry, you can't. You're not ready. That's what you've told me. You're not ready. So does that answer it? Hopefully.
I think that's a great way. January, question I'm asking everybody, and if you could just bring this really great conversation home. If a mom came to you and said, you know what, January, I just don't think it's possible. It's just not possible for me to be a great mom and pursue my dreams at the same time. What would you say to them?
I say, if you don't have the right tools, then you're not going to think it's possible. But if you are given the right tools, it's not only possible, you were intended. God does not give you a dream he does not intend to fulfill. I would say that nobody taught us integration. And if you understood integration, then you understand that your dream is never just actually by your contribution. Your dream actually is integrated, a lot more integrated than you think, if you had the tools to actually clarify and identify where they are in every arena. Because nobody will say, I just want to be able to change the world and I don't really care about my relationship with my kids. I don't really care about my house. No. If we were given the right tools, we would identify the dream in every arena. And that's the first thing we do in our, in the women's school, is that we actually identify the dream in every arena. It's not a blanket dream. It's a blanket that's unique to every specific arena. Why? Because then we're aware of what we are trying to actually achieve in every arena of our life, and that it's clear. And that with clarity comes freedom. So my encouragement to you is that you just need to take one step.
I love it. Where can people go to learn more about you?
They can go to januarydonovan.com or womenschool.org, or you can ask Lisa. We have a very comprehensive program that I know Lisa will probably speak more about. And really, I invite you ladies to give yourself the gift of integrated training. Our trainings are comprehensive, they're systematic, and they're integrated. And what I promise you is that, you will not recognize yourself in 2 months, in 3 months, through the formation and training that we are able to give in the women's school, and I've seen it 1,000 times over. So I would say just give it a shot, and I think that we owe it to ourselves to hand over our next generation to our children, where they're free to be who they were designed to be, and to live in that peace and joy, and to know who they are, to not doubt who they were created to be.
I love it so much. Okay, January, smile for a photo. So I want to encourage you right now, if you have your phone beside you, if you're watching this on your desktop computer or whatever, grab your phone. January and I are going to smile, and you're going to take a cute little picture of the two of us. And I want you to post it and hashtag the Possibility Mom Conference. You can tag me, Lisa Canning, tag January Donovan, and you'll be entered to win another fun prize. Okay, January, ready? Okay, everybody get out your phones. Okay, everybody, January smile. 3, 2, 1. Yay. Thank you, January, for joining us. And I'm just
Thank you, my friend. I'm really just grateful for all your work. You are amazing. Truly.
You are.
You lead the charge, lady. So thank you for all that you do.
I'm taking arms with you. Have a great night, January.
Thank you. Night is young. Good night, my friend.
The night is young, and I still have fun things for you. Are you still with me? Are you having fun? Let me know in the comments if you are having fun. I'm having the time of my life over here, everybody. I want to share with you this necklace that I'm wearing. This is a necklace by one of the speakers on the pre-recorded interviews. If you go to the Possibility Mom Conference.com, you can hear from Rebecca Price. She actually also did these earrings. And she is giving away a $100 gift card to her shop. You guys, first of all, you have to go listen to her interview, because we talk all about beauty and fashion and why it matters to get dressed. But like, come on, like, look at this. Like, isn't that so fun? Anyway, so use the hashtag, the Possibility Mom Conference, to be entered in for giveaways, and make sure you grab access to all of those pre-recorded interviews at the PossibilityMomConference.com. Okay, so I want to tell you a story. It's a bit of a vulnerable one, so please be gentle with your friend Lisa over here. So if you have been following my journey, you know that, especially on YouTube, if you're watching this on YouTube, you know that we recently moved our family from Toronto, Canada to Southwest Florida. And I'm so grateful for the opportunity. And if you want to learn about why we moved from Canada to Florida, I've got some videos on my YouTube channel that you can definitely check out. But unfortunately, when we moved here, we made a financial mistake. It was a big one. We miscalculated the closing cost in our house, and we came up short $50,000. That's a lot of money. And it was a very challenging pill to swallow, because I'm a personal development coach. I coach people in business. We simply made a mistake. Like, there's really no way to describe it. Like, we just literally made a mistake. We thought that the closing costs were going to be a certain number, but instead they were another number, and we literally just made a mistake. I'm sharing this with you because I allowed myself the first few months, to be honest, it was months, of moving here to be clouded with shame and blame and guilt. Everybody wave hi to my husband. Hi, husband. Oh, sorry. You're fine. I allowed myself, like, the story I told myself was, like, you should have known better. How can you be a personal development coach when you made such a mistake? It had some practical ramifications on my family. Like, we couldn't, just things like I couldn't furnish the house exactly as I wanted to from the beginning. we had to make some very very calculated decisions about spending money, naturally, because we were in this different, just different situation than we had intended. It felt like an impossible situation. And I remember that I felt just so stuck. And January and I, by the way, she has 8 children. Did y'all hear that? She also has 8. It's just so fun. And her husband is also of Irish descent. And so also fun to have children who are of mixed backgrounds. And I remember, so we're neighbors. We live close to each other. Our children do life together. And I remember she came over one day, and I was so laden by shame and blame and guilt. And I think she kind of could sense it, and ended up just giving me the encouragement that I needed. And that's also when I started my journey with the women's school. And I remember I was like, oh man, it's another program. I remember in my head just being like, oh my gosh, is another program really going to fix it? I had spent, as I shared earlier, I had spent so much time investing myself in business. And so I just remember being like, oh man, is this really is this really going to work? Is this really going to help? How is this going to help how I'm feeling at this moment? I should be focused on just making more money. And I just, when I cracked open the course, it was almost like balm. I just felt like I can change the story that's happening in my head and the story that then is my reality. I just felt like such a loser. And when we are in a place of so much self-condemnation and crisis, we cannot create. We stay negative. Our reticular activator, the part of our brain that looks for evidence, all I was doing in that time period was informing myself of what a loser I was. And when I started watching her training videos, it was like electric in the sense of, it was like a bomb in that I felt soothed, I felt heard, I felt like, wait a minute, there's hope. But it was electric in the sense of, Lisa, it's actually pretty simple. How about instead of waking up and saying, oh my gosh, Lisa, you're such a loser, you tell yourself, I'm a woman of solution, and I'm going to find a way to change my situation. We are now about 8 months out of that time when I was just every day waking up with so much guilt and so much, struggle, feeling so guilty that I couldn't give my kids certain things because we were being so careful with money, feeling guilty, feeling like it was all my fault because, we had made a mistake. And if I could have told myself what I live now and the peace I feel now and the possibility I feel, I don't know if she'd believe me, but a pivotal tool in this, because again, remember, I'm a personal development coach, and it was very difficult to coach myself out of this. Pivotal turning point for me was in examining the story I was telling myself about myself and starting to tell a new story and look for ways to solve the problem. I am a Catholic with very, very devout beliefs. Jesus is my savior and my guiding, my faith guides and influences everything in my life. And so I remember I would hear things about like mindset and mindfulness and, you know, different words related to mindfulness. And I would be like, oh, like get away. And I'd be very like hesitant, like what is all this stuff about like attracting things or, you know, that I can control things in my reality. I kind of felt like, oh, are those like not really aligned with my beliefs? And here's the thing. What we focus on expands. It is science. It's also biblical. there are parts of the Bible that talk about not to forget about the mind. I'm totally paraphrasing the Bible right now, but anyway, I'm sure I will look up the actual quotes and get them to you if you're interested in that. But my point is here is what we focus on expands. And I went from a painful situation that I really truly felt like I couldn't get out of, to carving out new grooves in my brain, looking for opportunities, looking for possibilities, and changing my situation. And you can too. Whether that be a financial thing, whether that be that you just want to be peaceful and not yell at your kids, whether it be that you want to have an organized home, whether it be that you don't want a laundry room full to the nines of laundry or your sink piled high with dishes, whatever it is, you can change. I mentioned earlier when we first started this evening that there's something in you. You're here. You're here. You carved out time to be here, whether you're watching it live or you're watching it on the replay. You clearly care about you and your personal development. And so I just want to remind you that no matter how shackled or torn or guilty or laden with burdens or whatever it is that you feel, you can change. And so I want to introduce a really practical skill right now, or a really practical tool right now, which is something called the Wholeness Quiz. The Wholeness Quiz is something developed by January in the Women's School, and it is in your workbook. So again, I just want to remind you, we're going to make sure that in the comments on Facebook and on YouTube, you've got the link there, www.thepossibilitymomconference.com. And that's where you can grab this workbook. I just want to remind you, you need to go get this workbook at thepossibilitymomconference.com. Go get this workbook. And what it is going to do is help you assess, as you can see here, your environment assessment, your intimacy or marriage assessment, wealth assessment, your contribution or career assessment, all the things. You're going to assess it. The single most important question that a mom can ask when assessing her life is, where can I grow? That time when I was just like down in the dumps and I'm a loser, I wasn't asking myself this question. I wasn't asking myself, how can I grow? I was just piling on more evidence of how I had screwed up. But as soon as I listened to the training, as soon as I started to realize how I think actually impacts my reality, my ability to provide for my family, my ability to be peaceful, my ability to show up as a good wife, as a good friend, my ability to show up for all of you. When I finally got to understand that, like, I can actually play a part in this, like I can stop thinking you're a loser and I can start thinking, how can I grow? What skills can I develop? What options can I seek out? And the change is immense. So I really want to encourage you to head on over to the Possibility Mom Conference.com and grab yourself your workbook, because it's going to help. This quiz is going to help. And if I may encourage you to come tomorrow morning with your results. So it's really simple. You're just going to total up. You're going to total it all up and just come with your results. Let me know what is your area of greatest total, like your arena of greatest strength. and what arena is really, really lacking. Okay. When you go to the Possibility Mom Conference.com, you are going to see that you get access to over 40 pre-recorded interviews from incredible experts, from incredible friends, from people who I think are really going to change your life. And so I want to give you a little taste of what you can expect when you go and register at the PossibilityMomConference.com and watch a whole bunch of really fun interviews. Let's take a look. If a mom came to you and said, I just don't think it's possible to be a mom, to be a great mom, and pursue my dreams at the same time, what would you say to her?
I would say that your mindset is everything. If you don't believe you can do it, you won't do it. But if you believe and you feel confident and you tell yourself every single day, I can do it and I will do it, that is a significant difference. The brain is a very powerful tool and we can use it to our advantage, but we can also use it to our disadvantage. And we do that daily, constantly, in and out, doubting ourselves and then picking ourselves back up, doubting ourselves, picking ourselves back up. And I think if we continue to look at it as I will accomplish this and I will do this, and setting those goals for yourself and locking them into your brain, it's such a powerful way of taking on what you want to accomplish and really seeing it through.
I'd say I think you have to. There can be small dreams that are big. They don't have to be grandiose, big dreams. It can be, I want to sleep train my child this month. That is a big, huge goal, and you could be working towards that. It could be, I want to get a nap in twice a week. I want to get through a book this month. I want to take a walk with a girlfriend once a week. So I think when we are whole, and maybe that's the walk, maybe that's the book, or maybe that's a full-time CEO role, we're all going to be filled differently. So remember that. Our cup being full is different for you, and it's different for me, and it's different for her.
But get it out of your head that it's going to always be balanced, because I feel like I'm still trying every day. And as long as you can kind of commit to constantly showing up and reworking the schedule and reworking how you do things until you find what works for you, it is possible. Does that mean maybe it's going to take more time? Yes, it depends on you, right? If I know I need X amount of days with my kids, so I feel good so that I could show up when I have a work slot, I have to be okay that it might take a little bit longer. But in the meantime, you're also showing your kids, look at what's possible, right? My mom told me, figure out what you love to do. You'll have to work hard, but figure out how to make money doing that. And I hope that as the kids grow up in this creative space and seeing all this, what were we flying in the air for today, Mom? That as they get older, they'll be able to, that's something that I constantly, when I start feeling really guilty, that it's like, no, it's okay. I hope that they will be inspired one day by what I'm trying to build. So it is possible. It's just, it might look a little messier than you thought.
Fight for yourself. Fight for yourself, for not just for yourself, but for your family and for your husband and for the world. Because until you get to a place where you can be happy internally and you have peace in your life, you're not going to be able to contribute to the world what you have to offer. So fight for yourself.
So we heard there from Rachel Loves. She's got over 2 million YouTube subscribers. Kristen Andrus, who is a lifestyle expert. We heard from Anna with Love, a creative photographer with 2 small kids. And we heard from Amanda Morin. And all of their interviews are available when you go to the Possibility Mom Conference.com. And I just want to share too that, perhaps you're thinking like, oh my gosh, like I really want access to all of these like forever. All of this is free until Sunday. But if you would like to get access to all of these interviews, including the replay from the live, because this live will only be here for the duration of this conference, everything goes away August 2nd at midnight. But if you would really like to have access to all of the 40 plus interviews as well as this live stream, go on over to thepossibilitymomconference.com/VIP pass, and you can grab your VIP pass before the price goes up. If you purchase it before the end of this conference, you get in at the very special rate. So go on over there and grab your VIP pass. All right. A few final instructions as we bring this conference home. Your homework is to complete the wholeness quiz in your workbook. And if you need help at all, feel free to DM me on Instagram, or you can email the support team at info@lisacanning.ca, and we'll help you out if you have any trouble at all. The next thing is, because if we were in real life at a conference, think about this. If we were in real life at a conference, what would we maybe be doing right now? Huh? Hey, anybody? What would we maybe be doing right now? We'd be maybe going to the hotel lobby bar, or we'd be finding a local restaurant in the city that we're in, and we would be going for cocktails or mocktails, whatever your flavor. So I want you to come join me at the Possibility Mom Success Circle on Facebook. Go on over there and join me in there for a little virtual cocktail. I'm literally going to make a mojito in front of you. I have never made mojitos. I don't even know what goes into mojito. I literally told my husband, like, go buy me things for a mojito. And that is all I know. I'm going to increase my skill, to borrow from the women's school. I'm going to increase my skill in making a cocktail. Let's end here. And if you would be so kind, just type for me in the chat, what has been your biggest aha today? What has been your biggest aha today? I think for me, what I have really gained tonight, or what I'm really feeling tonight from both Katherine, Wintsch, and January Donovan, is what can truly happen when we slay the dragon. What can truly happen, like the potential and the possibility that can happen when we start designing a life that is whole. I saw a couple questions in the chat about how do you join the women's school and what does that look like? And tomorrow I'm going to be extending a very special invitation about how you can join me in the women's school. So you definitely want to come back tomorrow for that. I also want to tell you what's happening tomorrow in the schedule. So let me just bear with me for a second while I pull this up. So tomorrow in the schedule, we are going to kick off the morning with, oh my gosh, guys, sorry. Here we go. We're going to kick off the morning. Oh my gosh, I have so many photos on my phone, and they're all like my toddler's feet. Anybody else have that? Let me know in the comments if your phone is filled with pictures of your toddler's feet. That is what my phone looks like. All right, tomorrow morning, we're going to talk about the fastest, safest way to get clear on your life's purpose. We're going to hear from the beautiful Leah Darrow why motherhood is not the death of your dreams. She is a former America's Next Top Model contestant turned Catholic speaker. We are going to talk about how to discover what makes you exceptional. We're going to talk about the truth about time management. We're going to talk about how to turn a dream into a reality while still being there for your family. And we're going to have a very special guest. My husband is going to join us on a discussion on how to get your spouse on board with your dreams. We're going to hear from some really cool women who have had some really cool experiences in the women's school. I'm excited to introduce you to them. And then finally, we're going to talk about how you can become the woman you are meant to be. If you had fun Please let me know in the chat. Please share this with a friend. Please let anybody know who you think might benefit from this, that this is free all weekend. I wanted this to be free because I think we need a little injection of hope. We need whatever we can get our hands on in terms of just charting a new course. And so thank you so much. In just a few moments, join me down in the hotel lobby, which is actually the Facebook private group, the Possibility Mom Success Circle, and I will see you tomorrow at 9 a.m. Eastern. Thank you guys so much for tuning in.